Hey, so you ready for a new week? Great. I know I am. I really am absolutely ready for some new, fresh insights and energy. Now, this is a forecast taking us from Monday, the 9th of December, right the way through to Sunday, the 15th of December, the day we've got a pretty spectacular full moon. And this has, I think, some really great aspects to it. If you are somebody who's got a lot of fire or air in your chart, you're going to really, really appreciate this. You're going to be literally in your element. There are so many really quite amazing patterns going on. Now, just to I don't know, catch up, I guess. I don't know. How have you found this last week? I've been absolutely frustrated in this last week. I don't tend to pay too much attention to Mercury retrogrades, but I have to say, I've noticed that the last Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius and this one as well has really, really affected me. And I am a Sagittarius, so maybe I should take a bit more, pay a bit more attention. But, there's been so many different things that I've started. For instance, last weekend's forecast or one of my videos from last week, the wrong mic picked up. I've recorded things thinking I've recorded them, done the reading and then found I hadn't hit record. I've not had the right screen in. I've had all sorts of things. So from my perspective, there's lots of things I've been repeating and having to do over and over and over again. Really little things. Even when I've checked them, it appears I've still missed things out. So it has been a time when I've really had to pay attention. So I don't know how it's been for you, but boy, I'm really pleased that at the end of this week, Mercury's going direct again. Really, truly, I cannot quite express it. I also noticed that when Mars went retrograde on the 6th, that my energy, it just collapsed. And I had this kind of not a breakdown, but I felt really unsure of myself all of a sudden. My usual level of confidence and buoyancy and optimism and stuff, it just kind of caved. Sometimes you need like one of those bed days, where you just sit in your gym jams all day and hang out. I don't actually have any pajamas, but one of the great things about working from home, which I'm guessing if you are working from home, you'll know this too, isn't it great that you can not have to bother with a bra and wear a pair of sweatpants? So yeah, thankfully my working styles really worked for me with these retrogrades, but it's they haven't been easy. So let's see what's coming up. So in this video then, how I'm going to approach it, as usual, the first part, I'm going to be talking actually about the planets, where they are on a day-by-day basis, and give the all-sign day-by-day forecast for the week ahead. Just really kind of explaining how you might choose to use the energy to make the most of it. And then in the second half of this broadcast or video, I guess, there are going to be the sign forecasts. So I'm going to be looking at all 12 signs of the zodiac, and it's completely up to you. I get questions every single week. Is this for my ascendant? Is this for my sun? I am not really a strict astrologer. I consider myself to be an intuitive astrologer. I do just what feels right, and I spend a lot of my time kind of channeling. I look at charts and I feel like I get pulled in, and then the chart really speaks to me. So I really think it should speak to you. So if you feel that these readings are for your ascendant, or also known as your rising sign, then please do listen to the sign associated with your rising sign. If you feel really pulled that this is for your sun sign, then listen to the forecast for your sun sign. So yeah, absolutely use your own intuition and what feels right for you in terms of which sign you're going to listen to. Some people listen to and I hear from them and they say, oh wow, this week this worked for me a bit more. How I think about it is the ascendant really, or your rising sign, is about the architecture of your life. You'll really get to listen to it from the perspective of how your life fits together. If you're listening to it from the perspective of your sun sign, then it's really about how you're expressing yourself more in this week ahead. If you're listening to it from the perspective of your moon sign, which can be really, really useful, especially if you consider yourself to be more moon ruled, if you feel, more in tune with your emotional life, your psyche, your intuition, etc., then you might choose to use your moon sign, and that will give you an idea about your psychic week ahead, your intuitive week ahead, your emotional week ahead. And you could blend all three. It's entirely up to you. All I'm doing is giving you what I've got for you to use in the way that works best for you. Now, I've chosen to use a whole sign system for doing these forecasts. So they might not fit into the system that you know exactly, but I'm using it because it's easier to teach and share, when you have one sign per house. So that's why I've done that. So there you go. Let's bring on the charts. But actually, before I do that, I just want to say a few thank yous. So for everyone that chooses to support the channel, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate you. All the people here, well, actually not all of the people here, but most of the people here are financial donators and supporters of the channel. And I've also got some people who are supporting from the sides in different ways. I think, this is a channel that I'm building, and I'm enjoying building it. I'm enjoying the interaction with people and hearing how helpful it might have been. That's what keeps me going, really. That's why I do it, because it feels like it's worth doing. So thank you so much for appreciating this and supporting me, because you're enabling this to continue. Now, also in this week, I've actually got to go onto a second page. Now, Carly, my lover, you're actually on your own at the moment, but I'm hopeful that by next week there'll be some more people on here as well. So yeah, thank you to everybody that supports the channel. I really, really see you. I really appreciate you. So as we're having a look at the moons right at the start, we are starting this week, with the moon in Pisces, ending with the moon in Cancer. The two moon signs, it's like water in, water out. The moon in Pisces is very laid back, doesn't want to make a big fuss, is wanting peace and is very genuine, very sweethearted, and also, kind of is like simple and intuitive and very dreamy. So that's how we're starting the week. And at some point in the day, wherever you are in the world, the moon is going to be going to Aries, where we're getting more direct, and definitely wanting to feel quite independent, feel like we are working towards something and that we are free to do so. We don't want to be impacted by people too much. We're really doing our own jam, I guess. And actually, moon in Pisces is quite a lot like that as well, I think. So yeah, Monday through to Wednesday, really think of this as a time to be quite independent, and to get on with doing what you want to do, be as direct as you want. Now, the moon phase in this week ahead is growing, and it's growing. It appears to be growing quite rapidly. At the end of the week, we are going to be experiencing the full moon. So, we're just at that first quarter phase, going into the waxing gibbous phase, where it's time to take action. So last week wasn't a week to take action. It was a week to really focus on our goals, but not take action on them. See what life was sort of adding into the goals, like waiting, sort of being patient and gentle with things. But this is a week to start to push ahead and to feel like you can make a difference and kind of make an inroad if you've got lots of work to do. It's quite a direct week. And Wednesday through to Friday, it becomes a lot more practical as the moon goes into the sign of Taurus. So it's practical. It's also peace loving. Again, it doesn't want a fuss. Money is favored. So, if you are wanting to work out your money and be calm about it during this moon phase, that would be really, really helpful. It's also very collaborative. So you might find towards the latter part of the week, you're working more closely with people and, finding it quite harmonious. Then on Friday, the moon goes into Gemini, and that's kind of interesting because right now we're in Sagittarian season. We've got the sun in Sagittarius, we've got Mercury in Sagittarius. And so, I think, like the moon in Gemini is really kind of coming into this opposition point. So we're starting to feel it. So as the moon comes into Gemini and our focus is more on ideas and communication, and less on quality contact, it's more kind of flitting, it's not so in depth, our attention is less focused, I guess, and more scattered. We may well find we're a little bit sort of frantic as we're coming into the full moon. You know, at this time, every time leading up to the full moon, we are in this kind of energy of overwhelm, you know, and, you know, for those people born around the time of the full moon, it can be quite a big thing. You know, in our bodies, we are accumulating as well. So, sorry. It is a time when fullness is just coming in. So, you know, with the Gemini theme and the fact that Mercury is in Sagittarius retrograde and is the ruler of Gemini, you know, that's stressed. In the sign of Gemini, where the moon's going to make a conjunction, is Jupiter going retrograde. And so, you know, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I think ideas are going to come up in such a way that there might be a little bit of frustration about getting your ideas out there, communicating them without miscommunications. And then, you know, on Sunday the 15th, we've got the full moon, and soon after, the moon goes into the sign of Cancer. So I think whatever kind of interesting scenarios are happening with this full moon, you know, in terms of how we might get into these little verbal debates or debacles. You know, I do think the energy of Mercury retrograde and the opposition between Mercury and Jupiter are going to be emphasized during the moon going into Gemini. You know, I think things are going to speed up a little bit and we might not have as much care and attention. So, you know, I would be a little bit cautious if you've got to sign important documents around this time. I just think, you know, we need to tread really, really carefully in any kind of negotiations between Friday the 13th and Sunday the 15th. Thank goodness it's the weekend, and, you know, many businesses are still kind of working Monday to Friday as a general rule. Yeah, so Sunday, when the moon goes into Cancer, I think we can also go, oh, and it's time for us to come back into ourselves. You know, it is a time to relax a little bit more and to be a bit calmer. Let's have a look, you know, when I bring in the actual energies. So on Monday the 19th, then I see that as a creative day. Lots and lots of flow going on. The moon is in a sextile to Uranus. There's a conjunction that should actually be joined to Neptune. So there is this sort of very dreamy cast, you know, where you could almost forget where you are. You know, we could get very lost in little daydreams and things like that. It's also quite sort of pleasingly gentle and romantic. We've also got the moon in a sextile to Pluto, which is kind of moving us along a little bit. And the trine to Mars is getting us to feel a sense of action. On that day as well, obviously, the moon goes into Aries when we start to feel a lot more active. And Venus is making a sextile to the North Node, which again, I think is very pleasing, and B, it's helping us feel like we're on the right track. I mean, one of the themes in this week ahead is this sort of Venus energy. She's really leading a lot of the good things that are happening in this week ahead. Like Venus is really heavily involved. I'm going to be talking about Venus a lot in the overall sign by sign breakdown. So stay tuned for that, especially if you are ruled by Venus. You know, if you've got something in Taurus or Libra, you know, I think, you know, that would be really helpful. So there's a lot of movement energy, but with some creativity and spontaneity with it. You know, the sextile to Uranus really does create some flow and spontaneity and surprise. So, you know, I really think this is a day to almost brainstorm in the morning to know what action you're going to take in the week ahead. You know, you might not really want to plan your week ahead in such great detail. To me, it feels like it's time to be kind of loose and free at the start and then make your decision. Tuesday the 10th, then there's some healing vibes coming up. The moon is in a trine to Mercury, which is really helpful. You know, we are emotionally in tune with our thoughts and how we're talking about them. The moon's in a sextile to Jupiter, which also is I think one of these, like the emphasis is on well-being. The moon also makes a conjunction to Chiron, which can make us feel a little bit sore in terms of if there's anything physically that's healing. But it's also, I think, very helpful in as much as it helps you see what you're trying to hide. You know, we can be a little bit sensitive. We can be a little bit open to, feeling a bit triggered by things. But we've also got the sun in a trine to Chiron, which I think is really, really helpful. You know, the sun in a trine to Chiron is, I think, putting us in the place of being responsible for our healing. You know, we feel like we know that we're in charge. We know that our experience is driven by us and our mindset. And so it's kind of mature. You know, it's helping you to not see yourself as a victim. It's helping you to see yourself as a creator of your own life. And that's really difficult sometimes because, you know, we're co-creating, like we're creating our lives together, you know, and yes, we have our own little areas of interest, and yet we sort of bump alongside each other and impact each other without meaning to. So the sun in a trine to Chiron, followed by the moon in a conjunction to Chiron, I think is useful because it's really helping us to take responsibility and to be in the flow of what's going on. So I've said it's a healing day. Get back into your body, breathe and relax. Like definitely get back into your body, the sort of like well-being as well. Wednesday, the 11th, there's not much going on. We've got the moon going into Taurus and the moon in a square to Pluto. So, you know, in Taurus, we are getting practical. You know, Taurus is a sign that's associated with resources and, you know, managing our resources quite well. And with the square to Pluto from the moon, you know, power and how we conflict in power is, you know, is definitely a discussion point. So, you know, I do think we'll be thinking critically about, you know, how much power we have, but also how we manage our resources. So, you know, in particular, if you've bitten off more than you can chew, it's an important day to look at why you've done it, how that's happened, you know, and maybe start to plan in alternatives for yourself. Thursday, the 12th, then the moon in a square to Venus can make us feel a little bit petty, a little bit, I don't know. It can be associated, I think, with a little bit of discontent, you know, not feeling so well, you know, feeling a little envious, a little bit possessive over what you've got. And, you know, it's here, I don't think we're in flow with our receivership. You know, there is, you know, with the moon in a square to Venus, it's really hard for us to feel like we're part of a flow of good, you know, and it feels like we're cut off from it. And so we start looking around guardedly. And so we kind of hold on to what we've got and don't feel like we're part of the flow. So that's difficult. The moon's also in a square to Mars, which, you know, is leading us to the next thing, which is Venus is in an opposition to Mars. So there is a T square going on between Venus and Mars and the moon. Thankfully, the moon's not going to, you know, the moon will go into the position of those two squares and it will be moving out. But Venus in an opposition to Mars is quite a strong energy. I did speak about it a little bit in last week's forecast. You know, Venus was in quite a strong position last week in a conjunction with Pluto and Ceres. So this opposition to Mars is, yeah, it's a big deal. I'll be talking more about it. You know, I guess like Venus and Mars, you know, Venus is everything female, Mars is everything male, just to assign those, you know, like the tradition to those particular planets. But you could say that, you know, on the one hand, we're talking about yielding energy, retreating energy, gentle energy versus thrusting, moving forwards, and grasping energy. And so, you know, like how can we integrate those? They are both sort of antidoting each other. I've come to in this week ahead, I've used that term a few times. To me, it feels like in opposition, you know, there is a problem and then there is a solution, but it's completely the other side of the problem, you know. So there are these seesaws going on. So I will be talking about that later, but yeah, be aware of that. There is a sort of confliction of identity and it's smoldering, you know, it creates a lot of tension. Now, both Venus and Mars are also sexual planets or relationship planets. You know, Mars is showing the deeply sexual side of it and Venus is the loving side of it. So, you know, it could be quite helpful in some respects to raise the sort of sexual game, On that day, the moon is also making a sextile to Saturn. So towards the end of the day, we are feeling a little bit more practical with whatever has come up for us. Friday the 13th, so Venus was making another, so she's made she's making another aspect. This is to Mercury, in a sextile to Mercury. I always love the Venus and Mercury aspects together. Like Venus is super friendly and warm and engaging when she's in a helpful aspect to Mercury, or in a conjunction to Mercury. There's a certain ease. It's very friendly. It's very sort of like brotherly, sisterly. So I see a lot of collaboration going on there. The moon in a conjunction to Uranus is speeding things up. The sextile to Neptune is making things feel very creative, but also gentle. And then the moon goes into Gemini. The moon makes a trine to Pluto, and also makes a sextile to the nodes. So, again, the moon energy is really moving, and there's this feeling of connectedness, I would say. So friendly, exciting, gentle, useful connections. That's, where I'd be using my energy on Friday. Now, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we will be all feeling that energy of the full moon coming in. So, I feel it a mile off. I start to feel a little bit sort of more tired, a little bit snappy, like I can't quite cope. So I don't know how it normally affects you, but if you're aware of it, if you do follow the positions of the moons, Friday, Saturday time, it's time to start becoming aware and not overdoing things too much. Give yourself a break. Which is perfect for Saturday, because I said it's a good day to potter. But I don't know why I put in there, but in refreshment. I'm guessing it made sense to me at the time. I would say include refreshment. So moon sextile Mars, we are active. And the moon in opposition to Mercury. We might not be feeling quite so talkative. And when we do talk, it could come out a little, there's sometimes a little bit of stilting, not getting the measure of it right. Sometimes we're blurting and then we're clamming up. The trine to Venus from the moon is really helpful. It feels like we're wanting to share again. The square to Saturn and the conjunction to Jupiter is really emphasizing the Saturn-Jupiter ongoing square. So we can feel a little bit competitive with ourselves. So I do think all in all, with the sextile to Mars and the trine to Venus, that is helping us move forwards and potter and, get things done at home. The square to Saturn is intriguing. If you're putting pressure on yourself, I think, it's not going to work. So I think that's probably where the refreshment comment came in, is, you need to be kind to yourself as you are going into Saturday right through to Sunday. And of course, on Sunday, there is the full moon, which I will be talking about. So on that day, the moon's in a sextile to Chiron. That's helpful and healing. We've got the full moon. Now, the full moon, so the sun and the moon are in opposition, and they're making a T-square to Neptune in the middle. It's not an exact T-square, but it's still close enough to really feel the energy of it. So that's something to bear in mind. Then the moon goes into Cancer and makes a square with the nodes. So, and the last thing, Mercury goes direct. So I will be talking about those in a chapter in just a second. Before I do that, though, I do just want to pay a bit of attention to the overall balance of this week ahead, because I've mentioned Venus in a sextile to the nodes, the opposition to Mars, the sextile to Mercury. There's a lot going on with Venus. And so this is what I wanted to kind of share. Venus and Mars, they're exactly in an opposition on the 12th. But really all week, Venus is in a conjunction with Pluto and Ceres. All week, she is in a sextile with Mercury. All week, she is in a connection with the North Node. Actually, towards the end of the week, she's starting to come out of that. And she's in an opposition with Mars all week. So we've got this T-square. Now, interestingly, Venus is moving forwards as usual. The North Node is always appearing to move backwards through the zodiac. And right now, Mercury and Mars are also working backwards. They're retrograde this week. So it appears that we've got this kind of fire trine, a grand trine, moving backwards, whilst at the same time Venus is moving forwards. So all of these are actually in a kite with Pluto as well. So first of all, it's really emphasizing to me that whatever we're going backwards in, like the fire signs I think are about inspiration, confidence, warming things up, growing, expanding. The fire signs include a lot of movement and direct experience. They're exuberant in their different ways. And so, Mercury moving through Sagittarius is helping us get clearer about our philosophical viewpoint and how expressive and adventurous we are. Mars in the sign of Leo going backwards, like retrograde through Leo, I think is really getting us to take action, or actually to stop taking action about our sovereignty, but to review the action we've taken. And it's heading back into Cancer. I think our personal stories, our family history is important. And so it's almost important for Mars to experience some of our family history, and to it's not just enough to remember it, before we can go forwards again and take action in our life, with a sense of passion, which I think really, passion and sovereignty, which are real Leo sort of energies. And then we've got the nodes, the North Node moving backwards in the sign of Aries. We're coming to the end of a time of understanding our individualism in relationship to everybody else. And so I do think there's a lot going on about our personal set point, our personal philosophies, and our personal passions, and how we're expressing those. So that's something that's being worked on at the moment. And then Venus is kind of the leading edge of this kite. She's creating a little bit of discomfort for Mars, because Mars is all about taking action, and then Venus, which is quite yielding, is moving from through Aquarius away from Pluto, where she's gathered a lot of strength. But Venus is taking the way we relate to people to a whole new level, and it's slightly more digital, it's slightly less attached. Venus, I think, is helping us to appreciate people even if we can't relate to them. And so, this is very much about our personal connections, our personal beliefs, and our to me, it's appearing like this fire sign almost feels like a heartbeat. It's working at our core sense of identity. And yet Venus is saying, yeah, I get you've got your core identity, and yet you can relate to everybody in spite of your identity. So there is something really quite deep going on there. She's separating from Pluto. That's what the S is there for. And she's applying in her sextile to the North Node, and applying in her sextile to Mercury all week, and applying into her exact opposition to Mars. So these are the real sort of aspects. But aside from that, we've also got the Sun in the sign of Sagittarius, another fire sign. We've also got Chiron in the sign of Aries, adding more to the fire. We've also got Jupiter in Gemini adding into the air picture, and of course the South Node also in the air picture. So there's a lot of things in the fire and air signs. And actually in Earth at the moment, all we've got is Uranus and Saturn and Neptune. Obviously the moon's whizzing around all the time. So this is a very fiery and airy week ahead. There's lots of inspiration, communication, flow, full of bright ideas and lots of movement. So, this is a week to take action, but I just think right at the start, it's important to tune in to that moon in Pisces and just get a real sort of intuitive take, like really look back at what you did last week, what changes came up for you, what new realizations you've been having, and then, make a sort of creative plan for this week ahead. Now let's have a closer look at the full moon in Gemini. So that's on the 15th, right at the end of the week. So there's the sun and there's the moon in opposition, and you'll see them both making a square to Neptune. Now, this package has got very, very wide orbs on astro.com. I don't really think Saturn at 13 degrees is really, truly in a T-square to the sun and the moon. I prefer to have smaller orbs. I think 8 degrees is plenty. But yeah, the T-square to Neptune here that looks like a right angle protractor. Is it called a set square? A right angle, I can't believe I said the right angle protractor, but a right angled, like a set square that you might use when you were doing maths. This Neptune here is a sort of balance point between the sun and the moon. And yet there's a tension with Neptune here. The sun isn't a million miles away from the galactic center either. That's quite nearby. And that is exactly in a square to Neptune as well. So there's a lot of cosmic insight coming in, because obviously Neptune is severely cosmic. Neptune is hypersensitive, deeply creative, absolutely about oneness. On the negative, when he gets stressed out, he can show where we self-destruct, where we are so delicate. We feel like we're too delicate for being here. And I do think this full moon could release that sort of energy out there, where, we might feel a little bit too delicate. So, I really think in this week ahead, anywhere where you think you're too delicate, start building in some resources, start building into some support around you. Because when we're supported, the Neptune, or when we can support ourselves, the Neptune energy can be released in such a beautiful way, and it can have such beautiful results. So I think this is really like deep working, in particular for people who've got Neptune on the angles. If you've got like moon in a conjunction with Neptune, or the sun in a conjunction with Neptune, you're really going to be feeling this. The sun is in a trine to Chiron as well, which is lovely, which means the moon is in a sextile to Chiron. So, we might be having such deep Neptunian insight coming in, and intuition, that healing becomes really possible. So I really think that there is this sort of gentle channeling energy that's arising at the time of the full moon. And the moon is separating from Jupiter. So the moon is, I think, kind of carrying that energy of well-being and expansion as well. So this really, even though it's a full moon, and full moons can really affect us, especially if you're born towards the end of Sagittarius, this is likely going to be around your sun. This is encouraging your intuition. It's challenging your intuition quite a bit. So yeah, again, if you are feeling delicate, I would also say if you've got your moon in Pisces as well, because that's like super delicate, you might also want to take extra precautions. Build up your resources leading up to this week ahead. So as this comes in, you can use the beauty of it and the magnitude of it and the connection of it to lift yourselves up. Now, whenever I look at the full moon, I usually also look at the Sabian symbols and also the asteroids or dwarf planets or whatever is coming into the picture. So let's go a bit deeper. So in terms of the asteroids, and I use serenu.com because you can put in, the time, place and date of birth for the particular full moon in Gemini, which is the 15th of December. In my time zone, I put it in and, put in the coordinates for London. And, then once you've got that in, you can bring up up to 1,000 asteroids, and it will, extra bodies in the solar system, and it will tell you what everything is aligning to. So in particular, I'm looking, is there anything aligning to the sun or the moon. And we've got these ones. So we've got Eros, we've got Circe. I don't know how to pronounce her name. Is she Circe? Or I can't imagine that she's like Cirque. I'm imagining Circe, but I don't know. So if I've pronounced that wrong, please forgive me. We've got the Galactic Center and also Huya. And so I'm just going to add these in. I realize they're not on this. So I'm just going to stop this, add these in and come back to you in just a second. Okay, I've got it. So you can see them in here. So when I look on Serenu, I'm looking for aspects to the moon in Gemini at 23:52. So I'm looking for the closest asteroids or cosmic bodies around those degrees, 23:52, that are conjunct, in opposition, or in a square. And it just so turns out that the things that I found were all actually not actually in a conjunction with the moon at all, but in opposition or in a square. So Eros is, I think, the most exact, really, really close to the sun. Actually, I take that back because it looks like Huya is there as well. But anyway, Eros, the god of love and sex, also known as Cupid. And so he's got these like bows and arrows of divine passion. And so Eros is really showing what we're turned on by. There's quite a lot about being turned on and seduction with this, if I recall correctly. So Eros is in a conjunction with the sun and in opposition to the moon. So, you know, in many respects, the moon in Gemini is bringing us into more rationality, is bringing our attention to lots of possible distractions, lots of things to get involved in. It's wanting us to be a lot busier, a lot more social. The sun in Sagittarius is more about, I think, enjoying the crack and not being so rushed to get involved in lots of things. You know, the sun in Sagittarius in opposition to the moon in Gemini is about enjoying the moment a lot more and kind of focusing on where you're going, but feeling quite optimistic about it. But probably getting a little bit stressed by someone organizing an itinerary, stop off points. You know, if you're thinking, you know, I'm just thinking about like when I've gone away, you know, to like a city break or something with someone that's super organized. I'm just kind of laid back, wanting to take in and kind of soak up. Whereas, you know, more sort of Gemini based people have things that they want to do. So this is, and you might be taking this like trip actually in real life. You might be going out and about, but feeling very distracted by other things coming in. Or this might be how your mind is at the moment. On the one hand, you're just kind of wanting to enjoy where your energy and your impetus is taking you. And there's this other sense of, I must be organized and I must, you know, be social about it, you know, feeling very conflicted. But Eros here is really adding into that sense of your enjoyment. To me, you know, we might have some very big things we're feeling motivated by, you know, really switched on by. You know, Eros or Cupid, you know, is showing us what is turning on, like, you know, a switch gets flicked. And obviously that could absolutely relate to our sexual awareness, and, you know, that sort of va-va-voom kind of energy that we have. But I also see that Eros is showing us where we're firing our arrows, you know, that we are kind of horny for certain things, you know, that it feels like we are kind of questing for life right now. And we don't really want the distractions or the emotions looking for extra detail and trying to take us away from what we've fixed and focused on. Now I'm going to go to Huya, which is a trans-Neptunian object. If you see TNO, that's what it stands for. These are the numbers, by the way, that you can find them on. These are the identifiers. So let's go to, I'm messing up my own thing now by changing the order. But Huya, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right either. It's really interesting. I got some of this information. There's a few different sources that are talking about Huya. And one of these that I looked at was the Trans-Neptunian Astrology blogspot.com. which is worth a read if you're interested in the trans-Neptunians. But it's related to the transfer. So I'm reading this out, because I can't be intuitive with it. It's related to the transformation of fixed patterns from past lives into a free and flexible expression of life. That's pretty cool. Again, that really matches the sort of pattern of Sagittarius at that time, the sun in Sagittarius, and also Eros, is being, in the moment, is awoken to a feeling of passion, a feeling of ardor, and it's taking us off in a particular direction. So Huya is transforming the fixed patterns, maybe the fixed arrangements of past life, into a free and flexible expression of life. We may very well be, at the time of the full moon, especially if you're Sagittarius, you'll be really relating to this energy here. Or if you've got a lot in Sagittarius, you'll be really relating to this message. This is a time where you don't want to feel tied down to arrangements, contracts, the nitty gritty. That's not really what's going on. This is about freeing yourself, noticing where you feel stuck, and then thinking, okay, I'm releasing this now. I'm letting go of this. This is no longer for me. So that's an interesting perspective, isn't it? Seeing as we're going through the sign of Sagittarius, I just also want to talk about the galactic center. So it's the center of our galaxy. I've spoken about this with lovely Tressa Murray from the channel Goddess Inspire. She contacted me earlier this year and wanted to chat, and then was a bit surprised to find out that actually she wasn't surprised, but my birthday is associated right on the galactic center. So she wasn't a bit surprised by that. But the center of our galaxy, we've got, I'm going to use my pens like I did last week, the moon on one side of the earth in the middle, and then the sun the other side. And then if I get another, I'm getting a ruler now. This would, and obviously this would be like gazillions of miles away, but this is all in a lineup to the galactic center, in the center of our galaxy, the heart of the Milky Way. And that's where the lac comes from. In terms of etymology, lac is about milk, mother's milk, like to lactate. Like we talk about lactic acid. It's galactic. It's the milk of the universe, or the Milky Way, I guess, galactic. And so if we're thinking about like the divine connection or the divine milk that might feed us, like we might be like, obviously I'm not obviously, but I breastfed my children for a really, really long time. So I'm really sort of connected into the story of, mother's milk, or, how we nurture the connection between us and our children. And, I think there's a lot more than just nourishment that is coming through our milk into our babies. I think there is maybe a transference of consciousness or an understanding. There's so much more that we pick up from the milk of life. And so the galactic center, another way I see of thinking, and I'm pointing to it like it's just over my shoulder. Obviously, I've no idea where it is, but I'm pointing way back into the past, trying to connect to the galactic center. It is like the milk or the flow that could be informing us about cosmic consciousness, the immortal self, the ability to move beyond our self and into a galactic self, i.e. the idea of immortality, God, creation, is deeply nourishing. And again, that really ties in with Huya. We're freeing ourselves from our fixed patterns from past lives into a flexible expression of life. Now, if we're freeing ourselves from the ideas and the fixed patterns of our stories, we might be freeing ourselves from, our human stories, or more likely our stories of frailty. Because this is one of the things I really think is shame about modern reality. There is this idea that we are like these frail victims, that we're not creators, that we're not able to, I think the idea of us being frail and having these really awful stories sort of confirming why we're so flawed is we forget that we have the power to change certain things. Obviously, like, you know, if somebody passes away, you know, I'm not aware of anyone I know that has the power to bring somebody back. You know, and like, obviously we're not in charge of all these things, but we are in charge of how we feel about them. And so maybe that is part of the changing of consciousness for us, is recognizing that we have the ultimate responsibility of how we choose to react, how we choose to think about things. And obviously that has an impact on how we are in our bodies. So I love these, I really love these in a conjunction with the sun. And they're going to be really highlighted by the moon. The moon is going to be stressing us out, and we'll have to, I say we, but, you know, all of us, if we are identifying more with the freeing of the past, freeing of the slavery of our stories, and coming into more of a cosmic consciousness, then, you know, the moon appears to be pulling us off course, but maybe the moon is challenging us so that we hold it more dearly, you know. The moon, by pulling us into the more mundane stories, no offense to anyone with a moon in Gemini or with a Gemini chart, but the Gemini energy is much more about being, I think, really here in the earthly stories of humanity. And Sagittarius at the other end is much more about what comes next. If you think about, you know, Gemini is the third sign, Sagittarius is the ninth sign. The third is more about the local. The ninth is more about the further away. So there, you know, we feel like we're being pulled into our local human stories. And there are plenty of stories right now, and yet there's so much bigger. There's something so much bigger going on, you know. So I love this. Now, the one I haven't mentioned is this one here, and because she's a goddess, and she's known in quite a negative way, actually. She is, I guess, a sorcerer or a witch. She is able to seduce, and she's also able to transform beings against their will. So she was trained in herbal law, and if somebody kind of peed her off and upset her, she would transform them into animals or swine, you know, and take full advantage of it. So she has this like bewitching energy, which is really fascinating, I think, because I've always thought that Neptune in the sign of Pisces is a real dissolution of our ideas and our identity. And I think I also think Neptune in Pisces, when it came into the sign of Pisces, was a real predictor of social media, and how all bets are off, all rules are off, how information is just all over the place now. It's unboundaried. The flow of information is unboundaried. The flow of spiritual information is really unboundaried as well. But also, like, the idea of disinformation or misinformation is such a Neptune thing, because Neptune can really show us where we get deceived and tricked. And so, you know, this goddess here, you know, she's a trickster as well. I mean, I think she feels justified in the people she's bewitching and putting under her influence and turning into animal or cattle. But it's interesting, you know, that there are these two transformers who can trick us, sort of playing us from all sides. So, you know, I see that there are lots of humans that are wanting to really stay in a story right now, and lots of humans that are wanting to release the stories and move beyond the stories. And then I see here we've got storytellers affecting both of us, giving us, and I guess me doing this, I'm telling a story too, and you'll be telling a story based on this. And, you know, we're all telling stories all the time. We can choose to see whichever angle we want and to feel justified by it. And I think this is also possibly a warning that by engaging in the stories, we might be turned into animals. Or you know, when I think of animals, I think of farming. And it's interesting that, you know, when I was talking about us coming into our like breaking free of the human concept, you know, talking about like immortality or the immortal self. like breaking away from the confines of human thought. I think of the human thought as human slavery, and of course, animals that are slaves are the ones that are being farmed. I know there are people that believe that humans are maybe treated like farm animals. I mean, we all have passports, which I know some people are going to roll their eyeballs about this, and go, oh God. But like, we're not allowed to move from A to B without having identity cards on us. And there's all these different things that are, we have birth certificates to show, where we're being born and who owns us. And, there's all these ideas, like that we are all regulated in a certain way. And there are lots of people, and more the Gemini side here will be like, well, we need these social orders to be able to understand how we all fit together, how we all relate to each other. And then there's a side over here really kind of, do we? So I really see that this full moon could bring up a hell of a lot of deep stuff. And it doesn't actually matter either way where we are. It's just a snapshot of potential. So yeah, I see all these when I look at these particular asteroids. And maybe, as you've looked at this, you're thinking, well, there's another reason. And if so, if you come up with something that you think is relevant, pop it in the comments. I'd love to hear other versions. That's just my interpretation of how I see this. So let's have a look at Sabian symbols. Now, if you haven't already checked out Linda Hill's amazing website, then go to www.sabiansymbols.com. If you're looking for a particular degree, you type that degree in and it automatically gets rounded up by Linda's website. So the Sabian symbol, like, there's 360 different meanings or forecasts, I guess, or interpretations, of a particular degree. Like, there's 360 degrees in the zodiac. There are 360 interpretations of those degrees. And so the interpretation for the full moon in Gemini is carefree children skating on ice. Let's see what this means. This symbol speaks of children having to tread carefully and watchfully. Situations are likely to come up where you may not know exactly what to do in challenging situations. If you feel like you're on thin ice, you may feel like you're walking on eggshells, planning each step as you go and listening for cracks the entire time. If you don't acknowledge changes and adjust yourself accordingly, you may be at a disadvantage. Be wary of blindly rushing into anything. You may get to the point where you can't safely return to where you began. If, however, you're set out to have fun whilst being mindful of your environment, this could be a fun-filled time with lots of shared experiences and good friends. Skating over difficulties, finding creative and childlike solutions to problems, treading on eggshells, children facing physical and emotional hardship, parents that crack up. I love that one, parents that crack up. There are some other bits right at the bottom of her interpretations. She also puts in, like, what happens if it gets overemphasized, so you might rush out before checking that it's safe, living for momentary pleasures, getting away with things through naivety and childishness, and the last one, falling through cracks. So it's interesting, in terms of the Gemini energy, it's like, be aware of what's going on. If I applied that to stories, that our stories might, they could be taking us into territories that we're not quite aware of. We might not be fully aware of the stories going on. And of course, in any opposition, it's daft to just look at one side and not the other. So here's the Sabian symbol for 23 Sagittarius. A bluebird, a sign of good luck and happiness, is standing at the door of the house. That's nice. That sounds great, doesn't it? This symbol shows the promise of domestic bliss or making a house into a home. The bluebird brings a sense of good luck and happiness and is a sign of good fortune, a comfortable home, and a sense that one belongs and is safe and cared for. This is the archetypal cottage with the picket fence, the vision that many have of owning their own home. It also speaks of natural, positive goodwill towards the inhabitants and probably towards the neighbours. There is a clear omen of good fortune at your door. Love and happiness come by being warm and inviting. Respond to your higher hopes. Spread love to all who enter your house or live nearby. A promise of happiness. Cottages and picket fences, real estate, owning or renting, house maintenance, message of hope and happiness, thresholds, welcome mats, songs of birds. I wonder if it's got anything to do with old Twitter as well, which is obviously now X, but, you know, the bluebird instantly made me think of X, which I know is actually a white bird on a blue background, but I did go there. At the bottom, it says, denying happiness or good news from entering, feeling that the grass is always greener somewhere else, thinking that buying things will make life happier. So I guess this is also, you know, in terms, if I go back to these descriptions, because, you know, obviously it's associated here, and Huya is also at 23 degrees and Eros is also at 23 degrees. So it's advising you not to like leave your current situations necessarily, like be grateful for what you do have, whilst also talking about freeing yourself from the binding patterns. You know, this is talking about finding your happiness, and feeling really, really comfortable with your home. And, you know, when I think of the galactic home or the galactic ideas, you know, to me, this is talking about us coming home into ourselves. And of course, it could have a lot to do, like if you're in the process at the moment of buying or selling a house or doing your house up, this could be quite useful to you. So there you go. So that's the end of the first part. I hope you found that interesting in terms of understanding the upcoming energies and how you might choose to use it. In the next part, I'm going to be looking on a sign-by-sign basis to give you that forecast that you might be waiting for. So anyway, catch you very soon. Bye for now. Hey there, Aries. So this is your forecast taking you from Monday, the 9th of December, right the way through to Sunday, the 15th of December. And this is quite an interesting one because there's lots of exciting energy going on, including this beautiful, and I don't know how it's affecting you already, but beautiful fire and air kite that is coming on. Well, it's with us all week, and it's really consisting of Venus in Aquarius, Mercury in Sagittarius retrograde, Mars retrograde in the sign of Leo, and also the North Node. Pluto's playing an appearance in there, as is Ceres. But the backbone of this I really see as being Venus and Mars in their opposition. So I'm going to be talking about this in this particular forecast and how uniquely that's going to be affecting the Aries kind of energetic. We've got the full moon on the 15th. That's Sunday the 15th. So the full moon is going to be, the sun is here and the moon is here, and they are in a T-square with Neptune. So I'll be talking about how that might be coming down for you, and also just the general flow of the energy as the moon is getting bigger during this week, leading us to right at the end. Now, obviously, your ruling planet right now, Mars, is retrograde. And has been going retrograde just for a couple of days so far. So I don't know how you're feeling, if that's affected you. In the earlier part of this video, where I do talk about the day-by-day forecast, and also talk separately about the full moon, I do also talk about how I noticed my energy drop immediately on the day that Mars went retrograde. Boy, did that have an effect on me. Funnily enough, just as Mercury was going retrograde over my natal Mercury in my own birth chart. So I do really feel the energy of that. So like I said, I'm wondering how that's affecting you. Anyway, let's get on with this. If you are looking for more of a day-by-day forecast, then I absolutely recommend that you check out the earlier part of this video with the section day-by-day forecast, you know, where it's a little bit more specific. This is more of an overview. So yeah, what's going on that's catching your attention? Well, the first thing I think to focus on is the fact that as we're starting this week, we are in a waxing gibbous moon phase, really. It starts a little bit with the first quarter, but the moon is growing really rapidly towards that full moon position. And, how I think this is affecting you is it's upping the ante. It's time to get a little bit more busy. It's time to take action. I think last week, we were able to take our time to make some decisions, to kind of see how things were resting. Now is the time to take action. And as the moon comes into your sign on, actually Monday the 9th, I think you're going to be feeling a lot more in your sort of direct pattern, where you'll be really quite feeling independent, probably a little bit emotional as well, because the moon coming through the sign of Aries, through our own sign always affects us more. We are definitely a lot more vulnerable. And obviously the moon will make a conjunction with Chiron that's been going through your sign for quite some time. So again, that's going to bring up some vulnerability, but there is this independence of feeling, like, how do I express myself? How do I move forwards? So this week ahead is very much about your self-expression. As the moon goes through Taurus on the 11th and 13th, you'll probably be feeling a lot more practical. It's definitely going, through this part of your chart, which is about your personal earnings, and also your self-esteem. And then towards the end of the week, it's all about your communication within the local environment, and how understood you feel by your friends and siblings and peers and things. So a lot going on, very much driven from your core identity. Now, the fire and air kite is fascinating to me, So we've got this grand fire trine, the North Node here, which has been for sure refining how you see yourself over this last 18-month period. It's been very personal to you. I'm imagining you've seen quite a lot of change and some sort of upshifts in terms of, who you are, how your body is. It really does feel up close and personal, like you have to get really clear about who you are, like, what am I doing here? I think we all have those moments, don't we? This is a particularly strong one. Like, this happens only every 19 years. So you've been going through an ongoing shift for a long time. Mercury retrograde up here is really challenging you to open up your mind to greater perspectives. And that is challenging because, this is quite a polarized world at the moment. And, Jupiter down here has been challenging Mercury for sure. I think all things to do with information in your life right now feel a little chaotic, like there's lots coming in, and you don't almost know where to start with it all. Like, what do you do with all this newfound information? I do also think you're probably thinking in terms of how you might capitalize on information. Like, are you wanting to learn a lot more right now? Mercury retrograde is going to be creating a bit of a change in terms of like how viewpoints are expanding your world. I mean, that is what Mercury going through this part of your chart is about. It's like, how is your world expanding right now through thought, ideas, communication, books, literature, podcasts, everything. It's like the written and spoken word can be really inspiring right now. And, so that is having a knock-on effect in terms of your identity. And then Mars down here is really trying to get you more creative and to link in your creativity, like take action about the things you're passionate about and to be creative about them. So, there is this, I think, a really exciting time in December. And I think this week ahead creates some excitement around that. But Venus here is saying, I think, in her sort of opposition, it doesn't matter how much passion you bring into your world through your creativity, and it doesn't matter about your identity. Feel free to do stuff with your identity, but Venus here is saying, actually you can also be connected to more people, and you don't have to be so personalized with them. You can actually be a lot more unattached to the people in your life, and also to what other people think about your creative streak and your output of your creativity. So it's interesting. On the one hand, there's this feeling of real sort of personalization and expansion around who you are, and how that sort of creatively comes out through your mind. And then at the same time, there's this realization that you can also relate to people without going into your personal ideas, that you can relate to far many more people just by meeting them at a thought level, or by meeting them like physically, like this trine between Venus and the North Node here. You're connecting on your journeys, not necessarily because of who you are, but you're just connecting on your journeys and connecting through your viewpoints. So like what you're creatively working on almost doesn't matter in terms of how you're meeting friends and how you're expanding into different networks. So it's an interesting little combination. One thing's for sure is right now you're not short on ideas, inspiration. It just feels like almost there's too much of it going on. And, Pluto up here is also really sort of describing the fact that there is a new sense of powerful friendships coming in for you. That there are people who could really change your world in quite a big way. There are people with very compelling messages, very sort of depersonalized messages from, this area here where you're highly personalized, sort of encouraging you to come out in a new way. And that can feel very, very, that can really sort of bring about a lot of impact and change in your life. Now, let's also consider what's going on with the full moon, because there is also an energy. So this is about like your creativity, who you're creating with. So down here, you're wanting to create from your sense of passion for yourself, for the pleasure of doing so. And yeah, up here, it feels like there are powerful new contacts coming in to create with you, that want you to become part of their, like their their vision, like what is coming up for there. But then this particular full moon is quite jarring as well, and this is based on all ideas. So this is on creativity, and this is on ideas and the dissemination of ideas. So up here, the sun at the time of the full moon is surrounded by helpful asteroids. If you want to know about them, check out the full moon forecast earlier in this session. But, the sun here is really wanting to take you to a place of adventure and freedom, and to kind of come out of the confines of agreed thought, agreed narratives, agreed like who does what, how we do it, all these kind of rules and social ideas. And yet the moon here is very sensitive, and it feels like there is possibly pressure from the people within your community to be more present there. And so I think as we're getting towards the end of the week, you're feeling this increasing pressure to come out of your joy and your freedom to connect with your local community and worldwide communities on their global visions. And so, in many respects, it feels like people are pulling you out of your pleasure. And it feels like there's this game of tug of war, like you're here very much concerning yourself with what feels right for you, and you're being pulled out. Now, something else that's adding into this, with Neptune in your 12th, is it's challenging a lot of your programs. And what you might find useful is to revisit some of your programs, in particular, how you might be working in terms of your unconscious mind. So for instance, you might be aware that you've got like maybe a people pleasing program going on, or a shame program going on, or what's even worse, a social shame program going on, or a not good enough racket that you've got going on. And so Neptune here can actually be quite useful, because Neptune can help you see that there are programs internally that are adding to this dynamic. I mean, you might have a program that I can't trust everyone, in which case you'll feel very threatened by these invitations to kind of come out of what seems like your pleasure and go into our pleasure. and if you've got a belief that you can't trust people and that people are untrustworthy, why would you want to come out of your great adventure to stay localized in the real business of what's going on in the everyday black and white world? So, Neptune could be very helpful here. But if you do realize that you've got a shame thing going on, a social shame thing going on, which is much bigger, or something like whatever programming you've got playing out with other people, collaboration and friendships, in particular, insecurities around friendships, it's worth taking a good look at before the full moon. Now, like every week, I'm usually sharing quite a lot of information. In this week ahead, I think it's quite concise, that there are just these two big sort of patterns that are the enduring patterns. I feel that the messages coming out really do focus around the people in your world and then you and what is making you happy. So I'm going to leave that there. I hope that's helpful for you in terms of understanding the overall picture of what's shaping in your life right now. And as we come into next week, just before we come into next week, Mercury goes direct. And I think that's going to be quite helpful. Like Mercury going retrograde in this part of the chart has, I think, been, it might have been unhelpful in terms of, in the way that Mercury retrograde often is. But it's helping you challenge your perception of big world ideas, big world philosophies and belief systems and things. But I do think once it goes direct, things are going to clear up. You won't be so cluttered in your mind. You won't feel so overwhelmed by things. Jupiter is still going to be retrograde for, a while longer, but Mercury going direct is going to help you feel a lot clearer about your freedom. So there you go. I hope that's good for you, Aries. Have a great week ahead. And if I can be of any help, you know where I am. But anyway, take care and hopefully catch you next time. Bye for now. Hey there, Taurus. So this is the forecast taking you from Monday the 9th to Sunday the 15th of December. Now, this is the week where we are building up towards a full moon between, the moon's going to be in Gemini here and the full moon's going to be in Sagittarius. It's actually forming a T-square with Neptune in Pisces. So that's one of the patterns I'm going to be talking about in this overview. There's another pattern as well that's coming up, really based on this, the position of Venus. So in this week ahead, she is making a sextile to the North Node. She's making a sextile to Mercury. She's also making an exact opposition to Mars. So that's giving us the 4 points of a kite. Now, they're not all exact at the same time. It's over the course of a week. She's also currently separating from a conjunction with Pluto that's given her quite a lot of strength on her journey. So I'm going to be examining this. There's a lot of energy in the fire and air signs right now. There's Chiron here. We've also got Jupiter here. We've also got the sun here. So there's a lot going on in these elements, so you might feel a little bit out of your own pattern right now, given that there's so much fire and air, because, there's nothing that's particularly grounding apart from Uranus in your first house. And let's face it, out of all the planets, Uranus is not one that grounds very easily. Uranus is such a start kind of energy. So yeah, you're slightly up against it. However, I think there's going to be some exciting developments from this energy balance in your life. Now, before I really get going, if there is a desire to know more about the day by day forecast, like how it works, how you might manage your energies, then go back to an earlier section as well called the day-to-day forecast, which will be helpful. If you wanted to know about the full moon and its asteroids and also the Sabian symbols, then also check the full moon forecast earlier in this video. And also, if you want to know more about the intricacies, like a lot more information about the Venus and Mars formation right now, check out my earlier chapter about that. This is more about the Taurus version of it all. So yeah, in this week ahead, the moon is in a waxing phase. It's getting bigger until it comes to the moment of the full moon on the 15th, which is Sunday the 15th. And so there is a sense of it's time to take action now. And it's time to get moving. So whatever seeds you were sowing in the last week, you're now ready to start to take action. You know, it's time to start moving on the things that are building from the relaxation and the dreaminess of last week. Now, it starts in the sign of Pisces, but quickly moves into the sign of Aries. Now, when it's going through the sign of Aries, you know, on Monday through to Wednesday, you might feel a little bit more reflective than usual. You might find that you aren't quite so out there and wanting to be the life and soul of the party. You might feel a little bit reserved. That's completely fine and completely normal during this time. We often sleep a lot more when the moon is coming past this part of our chart. But from which day? Wednesday through to Friday, as the moon is in your own sign, it should start to get a lot more natural for you. You'll feel a lot more balanced. You'll be feeling a lot more in your own space, in your own story. With the moon in your own sign, though, it will bring your emotions to the fore. You're much more likely to wear your emotions on your sleeve. And much more likely to tell your story and want to communicate and to spend time with people. Thereafter, the moon is going to be heading into the second house. And so it's bringing up some of the themes of this full moon ahead of time. And this, I think, is really getting you to think in terms of your resources, like how much have you got flowing in? What are your attitudes to earning? Do you have any worries and insecurities about what you're earning and how you can survive? I really think the second house, if we don't feel like we can survive very well, it can really attack our sense of value and self-worth. And so, it's worth putting in a little bit of preparation before the time of this actual full moon. Anywhere where you feel vulnerable, start to build on that as soon as you can. So at the time of the full moon, it almost feels like you've got a plan of action. So overall, in this week ahead, there's an abundance of fire energy and also some air energy coming in, with Jupiter here. We've also got Pluto, Ceres, and Venus. This is really, really strong, and the South Node in Libra as well. So it's all about inspirations, ideas, and communications, and the free flowingness of life. And so this, to the level that you can get into the free flow energy and be really cool with that, I think will determine how easily this week goes for you. Now, the crux of this energy, I think, is really in between the 4th and the 10th house. In many respects, Mars going through your 4th, but retrograde, it's bringing in this idea that you need to take action at home, but you maybe don't know how to take action at home. And you're rethinking what kind of action you need to take at home. And Mars is, heading towards this part of your chart, almost as if the answers really lie in the community you're in. Like, are you using your community? Do you have friends in your community? If you're not feeling particularly connected in your community, or maybe don't feel like you have a story in your community, it might be signaling that you either have to do more there to feel at home, or maybe you're in the wrong location. So I do think, Mars is going to, when he does come forwards again from the end of February, and then when he comes into the sign of Leo again, you're going to have your answers. There'll be a lot more stability, and you will be able to take action about where you need to be. Now, up here with Venus, she's right at the top of your chart, really showing that wherever you, aside from where you live and how much you earn, there's something really quite beautiful going on. It feels like there are people lifting you up, maybe people that you've known from your past, people that have seen some of your immediacy, and people that maybe you've been intimate with, maybe people from your birth family and your home, like your old home. It feels like there has been a lifting coming up, I believe that we are standing on the shoulders of giants, like every successive generation is building from the last. And so it's almost as if there is a recognition that you are coming into your own, you have climbed above, and that you are still rising. You know, you're not entirely sure where you're going to go to necessarily, but you are on a trajectory in the right kind of direction. There is also, with the North Node going through here, I think you've gone through quite a lot of personal processing to be able to free yourself up. Now, with this fire trine going on between the North Node, Mercury retrograde, and Mars retrograde, I think you've been really thinking about a lot of psychological motivations for success, also motivations for success that might help you feel more like there's a purpose for being here. And with the North Node here as well, that's really gone into your inner programming. So I think you've had to look at self-sabotage and a lot of negative stuff that you've brought through from childhood. And yet right now, it feels like it's all coming together and it's pushing you closer to the real world. Now, one thing that you might not realize, and I think this is very evident from the opposition with Mars retrograde and Venus, and that is that, you know, all the personal things that you've been considering during this time, they don't necessarily have to form part of the story of why you're here in this position of success. It's almost as if as you're sorry, as I need more, oh my goodness. It occurs to me that the success that you're building for yourself has, I think I'm losing my voice. Forgive me. Okay, that's better. It occurs to me that where you're going in your career is in such a different direction that you almost feel unattached from the stories. Like the stories are there, they're underpinning it all, but your real sort of home story, the real you that's like hidden under everything, doesn't necessarily have to come into your career or your outward expression. It almost feels like there's a detachment. You know, Venus in Aquarius is showing that you don't have to have so much attachment in your career right now. So, you might consider how that's playing out in your world and what you might want to make that mean. I really, truly feel that, you know, when Venus is going over the top part of our chart, it's really showing us that we need to notice what's helpful, notice where we're getting praise and recommendations, notice how our reputation is improving, and then build from there. And that might have nothing to do with your personal story or how you got there. It is fascinating. Now, the other thing, you know, obviously money's coming up with the full moon in between Gemini and Sagittarius. The sun in Sagittarius is really wanting to get much clearer about how you can free yourself from the stories of the past. In particular, if you look at my full moon forecast from earlier, the sun is really enjoying a sense of freedom, separating yourself from your old patterns, the old stories about who you are. There's a real feeling that to adventure and to enjoy life is to dissolve those patterns and recognize that you're more of a cosmic being. And yet the moon down here is still stuck in this story of, yeah, but if I forget about all of these stories and kind of drift away into my own patterns, I'm not going to get the job done. I won't be able to earn a living. I won't be able to do this, that, and the other. And how can I have a strong sense of self-esteem if I'm maybe not attending to my money and I'm not attending to things? So it does feel like a really strong division in terms of your strategy for moving forward. So on the one hand, there is this forward movement and a separation from the stories to do with how you got there. And in terms of your earnings, it feels like there's a really similar message coming out. So one, I think, is about visibility and achievement, and the other is the money that's really coming in from the output and your achievements. And yet, what I really notice about both of them, like the amount of money you can earn and receive and the amount of success you can enjoy, it feels like it's got nothing to do with the real joy of being you and your real story that you've had to get you where you are. Now, another thing that's playing into this is Neptune in this part of the chart, really showing that I think Neptune here is that there are lots of creative ideas coming to you from friends and from networks. There's also possibly bad advice that comes in, advice that looks good, but maybe isn't so good for you. And so to me, it feels like there is some treachery in terms of your earnings, and also in terms of how you release yourself from the stories. So I would, to me, it just feels like any bad advice is coming in from third parties who have ordinarily seemed quite trustworthy, could be impacting into this full moon. So I think there's a few things to watch out for. The overall energy I get from this is it's time to release your stories a lot more. There is something much bigger out there, and I see a much bigger freedom coming for you, but your freedom really isn't based. Sure, your stories have got you where you are right now. However, your stories maybe don't carry enough weight to propel you forwards even more. You're going to need to create new stories about yourself, or maybe even start living free of stories, free of expectations, free of programming. And, I know that's kind of an impossibility right now, but, maybe you are loosening the impact of having these programs and stories in your life. I really think you are moving beyond the edges of who you know yourself to be. So this is really quite exciting, actually. But from your grounded Taurus perspective, it might feel very, very uncertain. So I hope that's helpful in terms of understanding what's going on for you. Please, accept my apologies that my voice was going through that. I'm going to go through the signs and see how far I get. And hopefully I'll get through to the end today. But anyway, have a great week ahead and catch up with you next time. Bye for now. Hey there, Gemini. So this is a forecast taking you from Monday, the 9th of December, right the way through to Sunday, the 15th of December. And there's a couple of patterns that I'm really going to talk about. I'm not going to do this for as long as I usually do. I'm going to try and get this done in 10 minutes, not because I'm in a rush, but more that my voice has been wavering in the previous two. And I want to pace myself so everyone can get a message today. So, before I really dive into it, in the first part of the video, I've got a day-by-day forecast for all signs. I've also got a deep look at the full moon and the message of the full moon, and a deeper look about the fire and air kite in separate sections. So they are forecasts in their own right, and they could be very useful to you. In this particular part of the forecast, I'm looking at these patterns with a Gemini overlay. So what does that mean to you as a Gemini, or somebody maybe with Gemini rising or ascendant? How is this going to go for you? The first thing I want to say is hang in there. If this Mercury retrograde has been getting on your nerves, we are coming to the end of this on Sunday the 15th, the day of the full moon. Sadly, it's still retrograde during the full moon, and then the retrograde ends soon after. So hang in there if that has been affecting you. I'm actually going to start by talking about the fire and air energy first of all. So we've got a grand fire trine going from the 7th to the 11th and to the 3rd. These are all very social houses, so here we're talking about your local community and how you are within your community, your peers, your local friends, what you're learning through your social connections, how you are in terms of are you very busy in your community? This here is more about your loved ones, the people closest to you, the people that you hold dear. And then up here, these are your further a field, networks, like business networks, friends of friends and things like that. And also sort of in-laws and outlaws and, people outside of your family. So there's a lot of inner work going on here. You've got Mercury retrograde, Mars retrograde, and also the North Node. They're all working and interacting in this week ahead. And so I think you're developing new ideas and inspiring ways of behaving with the people in your life. For instance, Mercury retrograde here, I think, is showing that some of your people closest to you are rethinking their ideas. And so that might be prompting you to rethink your ideas about them. It feels like there's a lot of change around your loved ones right now in terms of the conversations you might be having with them. And possibly there are some miscommunications between you both, so that one says one thing, but the other hears a very, very different message. So there's things to clear up. And really what that is calling out for is greater intimacy. Like maybe you just haven't been telling each other enough stories recently. Maybe you haven't been connecting. One thing I noticed this morning, my husband and I sat outside on our porch, even though it's December, and we had a cup of tea and we just chatted for a couple of hours. The kids were asleep in bed. It felt fantastic. And I realized, wow, we haven't done that for a while. So that's the kind of thing I'm thinking here is how could you just get a moment, like break free of your usual connections and commitments and just connect with the person or people really closest to you where you really hear each other. I think that's really a time worth, well worth spent. And then down here, the kinds of actions that you're doing in the local community, with the retrograde, you might feel uncertain about how productive you are in the area that you're living in, how productive you are around your work colleagues, the people that you're meeting and interacting with on a fairly frequent basis. And so it feels like maybe it's time to take different actions with them, and that maybe your story with them is changing. Maybe there's a different role for you in your local community. And then up here with networks and, all the other people that you might share a vision with, but might not be directly impacted on a day-to-day basis by, the North Node here has really been changing your thoughts about, like how global are you exactly, and what are your global roles and responsibilities. So there's a lot going on here about people, and yet Venus, which is absolutely about people, Venus is a connector, she's a lover, she's creative and wanting to be in flow with others. She's all about relating. And right now she is in the sign of Aquarius, which can be very non-personal, personal. She can be very unattached to the people, and she's looking for freedom and individuality in the sign of Aquarius. She can also appear a bit absent-minded, or just really not bothered. And the ninth house is absolutely about having a new adventure and feeling freedom, feeling a freedom of ideas, a freedom from dogma, and just being a free person. And so what I think is going on in this week ahead is, you've been doing a lot of development in terms of how social you are and how important people are to you. And yet there's a much bigger calling right now. And that bigger calling is to free yourself up in life as much as you can. So how can you have these interactions without being pulled into a story of locality, a story of globalism, and a story of your personal life? It's like there must be something that's just for me. There must be something that I can disconnect from. So I'm really seeing a disconnection coming in, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. It sounds like it could be, but I'm seeing it as a great adventure. And, I don't think you have to disconnect. There are these sextiles that are helping, and you may well, have your close family and the sort of global connections to thank for this new expanded kind of point of view that you've got right now, this desire to relate to the world in a whole new way, in a very sort of unattached and free way. Now, let's move on from that energy and come to the full moon. Now, the full moon is going to be in your sign on the 15th, and leading up to it, the moon is going to go through this area of globalism, and also this area of sleep and your unconscious mind and old patterns and programs. And the full moon, when it comes in, is in a place, in a place in the chart where we might feel a bit vulnerable. We wear the heart or your heart on your sleeve, or we wear our hearts on our sleeves when the moon is here. And the sun is here in the area of other people. And so, I always think when the sun is in this part of our chart, it's a time when we naturally do connect with people, and when we naturally have fun with people, but also we might realize how great we are because of the great people we have in our lives. I think whatever we are noticing about the people around us, it's part of our shadow. And it actually might be part of our light too. So I just think whatever we're seeing in other people, it's a time to accept in ourselves. And then the moon here, funnily enough, is bringing you into the story of yourself. It's asking you, who are you? What's your brand? And again, I think there is this kind of cosmic battle going on between being attached to the story of togetherness with the people around you, whilst also cutting your own path. So they are these like two separate themes, and yet there is a similarity to them. It feels like there are, energies that could keep you in a certain pattern and a certain way of thinking and being. And there's nothing wrong with them necessarily. And yet there's this yearning at some level to explore more and to go deeper into your own experience. I hope you enjoy the energies of this week ahead, and I hope you can explore more of yourself, and how you are evolving as a being here right now, so that I think this is all part of the flow. I mean, obviously it will come back into a different balance at some point, where, again, you'll be encouraged to come back into the fold a bit more and bring some of those new realizations and experiences with you. But for now, it feels like you're heading off somewhere into a new adventure. And Pluto coming here as well is an indication that is also on the cards, that there is a transformation that is allowing you to cut your own path. And to walk your own path and to be your own path. So yeah, some really big shifts going on. So there you go. I hope that's helpful. The very last thing is, after the full moon, Mercury is going direct again. I think things will clear up with your family and friends. And actually in the miscommunications, it has served you as well, because it's put you on a path to thinking more deeply about the purpose of it all. So there you go. If I can be of help, get in touch, but have a great week ahead and hopefully catch up with you all soon. Bye for now. Hey there, Cancer. So this is a slightly shorter forecast than usual because my voice has been going up and down. It feels a bit like I'm losing my voice a bit today. So I want to conserve it so I can do as many signs, because I fear I might have to stop midway through. Anyway, this is taking us from Monday, the 9th of December, right the way through to Sunday, the 15th of December. And this week ahead is an interesting one. There are two big patterns that I'm going to be talking about today. The first is this fire and air kite, which is really, I think, led by Venus. She's making a connection to Mercury and the North Node, and also Mars. Mars and Mercury are retrograde currently. So there is this pattern. And then we've got the full moon. So the sun is here, the moon is there. So the moon's in Gemini, the sun's in Sagittarius, and it's also a T-square with Neptune, which is creating a little bit of deception and a little bit of uncertainty for us with this full moon. And we're in a waxing moon phase right now. So it's time to take more action, be more active. So there's this very strong fire and air and active kind of energy. So before I really dive into it, Cancer, there are some other things that could be helpful within this video. If you're wanting a day-by-day forecast, check out the day-to-day forecast chapter earlier in this video. If you want to know more about this fire and air kite in its entirety, then check out my earlier chapter about that as well. I've also got a specific chapter about the full moon and the full moon Sabian symbols and the full moon asteroids that I think would be also very, very useful. But this whole forecast here is for you. It's for the Cancer energy. So it's all of those things with a sort of Cancer overlay. Like, how does this affect you? How does this manifest in your life? So that's where I'm really moving from. The first thing I want to talk about is the overall fire and air energy. So we've got this fire trine with us all week. Mercury's retrograde in the sign of Sagittarius, very much affecting how you manage your life, how your routines are like going along, like your work, your health, your food, your fitness, and your money, how you're managing it all. I would say it's like the office manager. And so Mercury retrograde going through this is showing probably quite a few changes, some rearranging, possibly you're rearranging your schedule, your house, your home, everything. It just feels like everything is up for scrutiny. We've got Mars retrograde here in a part of your chart very much associated with your earnings and how you're taking action to increase your earnings, save your earnings, make the most of your earnings, and also to make the most of your self-value, your self-concept. What action do you need to take to feel more confident in yourself? And what action do you need to take to stop the erosion of your self-esteem? Now, this is retrograde right now, and it's heading into the sign of Cancer, really emphasizing that some of those answers come from understanding your past, understanding your family history, and understanding, like what home is. Like, I think if you can understand those aspects, you'll get some answers that will help you really build on your self-esteem and know how to take action about your earnings. But I don't have the time to sort of link that in so much today. The North Node here at the top of your chart has been really taking you on an 18-month exploration of your career and how you want to be seen in your career, what does success mean to you? What does the idea of legacy mean to you? Like, for instance, have you been busy building a legacy? Now, by a legacy, I'm not just talking about rising up in your work or getting to the top of your profession. Is there something that you're going to be leaving? Is there, what lasting energy will be here? Like, what residual energy of you is going to exist once you're not physically here? Are you creating something that's outliving you? Is that important to you even? It might not be important to you, in which case it's not a problem. But the North Node going through this part of the chart will really bring up some deep thinking in terms of your legacy. And so these three things, I think this grand fire trine in this week ahead is creating a real big curiosity about your work, your career, your output, your legacy, and how it relates to how you live and how you manage the balance of all of that together. It's all in discussion. It's all in flow. And because they're fire signs, also because there's some retrogrades, it's inspiring. You're not necessarily sticking to the same recipes. You recognize it might be time for a change. And now we've got Venus here. And she's in the sign of Aquarius. She's recently been in a tight conjunction with Pluto. That's wearing off a little bit in this week. But Venus's role here, she's showing you that there's other ways to live, that there are other resources to engage in. Venus, she is an accumulative planet. She is a wealth planet. Mostly she's known for flow and relationships, compassion, connection, love, but she's relating to your good and the flow of good coming to you. Now, the 8th house here is also a money house. It's also a house that creates a hell of a lot of trouble and trauma. The 8th house is a place of secrets and shared values. So if this is you and this is your money, this is your partner, this is your partner's money, or the money that you share. So this is shared money, shared values, shared things that come to you. And so Venus here is really showing you that you can be unattached. It's in the sign of Aquarius. You can be unattached about other monies. You don't have to, and maybe you need to be unattached about money, full stop. Here she's saying, maybe you can relax a little bit about how you are at home. Maybe you can relax a little bit about the future and your legacy. Maybe you can definitely relax about what you're bringing in and the impact of you doing these particular things, because actually there is some flow in terms of the cumulative money that we have, the shared money that we have, the shared resources that we have. So to me, there's another solution that maybe you haven't yet thought of. Now, if you are in a relationship, most likely there is some shared money. But if you're not in another relationship, that might feel a little bit weird. Like where else might you have money from? And again, there might be money from parents or people around you, but it's not necessarily just the resources of money. It might be that there is a certain amount of sharing of skills, sharing of other resources that you've got from good friends and people around you. Good fortune doesn't always come in just like one flavor. And so Venus here, she's very unattached. She's really kind of encouraging you to lose some of these money stories and to evolve them to create. I think she's encouraging you to realize that it's not all done in one way. And the sooner you lose the idea of it only comes in this one way, the quicker more things come to you. Now, the 8th also does show money coming in from banks, building societies, shares and stocks and all sorts of different things. So there are other ways that resources can reach you. So, don't do it just one way. And possibly that's what you're realizing right now anyway. Now, that's sort of ongoing, and there's a lot of fire and air energy, which might make you feel very much out of your element because water's the big one for you. And so as we're coming up to this full moon, you may well feel like your brain's a bit fried, and and the sun in Sagittarius is really bringing your attention to your everyday concrete life, and yet the moon is really bringing you into a more unconscious area. An area of surprise, an area of programs and self-sabotage, old belief systems. To me, again, the challenge of what you believe to be true is what's coming up. The moon is saying, if you're just living in the here and now and the current narrative without challenging your thoughts, without challenging your programs, you're missing a trick. The moon here is showing that your intuition, like following hunches, connecting with people in a whole new way, will create new solutions. The more you're using your intuition, the more you're in a dream state, the more you are activating and also working on your existing programs, to like loosen them if they're not helpful, the more possibilities you're bringing to yourself. So with this particular chart, I think what's really helpful in this week ahead is to recognize that the subliminal, the unusual, the possibly deceptive, and possibly new stuff that might be coming in from Neptune in the 9th house. There are new freedoms and new information coming. There are new possibilities and ways of seeing things that are not attached to your personal story. So it's like lose the personal story. Lose the idea that you have to be right in the crux of this. The more you can loosen that and relax that hold, the quicker your life is going to develop. And at some point along the way, that pattern will change again, and it's more important to focus on your real story again. But, these things are always going around in cycles, and this cycle is to, I think, open you up to greater possibilities. And the only way you can do that is by losing the sense of it only happens this one way. So good luck with that, Cancer. If I can be of any help, just get in touch. But hopefully I'll catch up with you real soon. Bye for now. Hey there, Leo. This is your forecast taking you from Monday, the 9th of December, right the way through to Sunday, the 15th. In this forecast, it's a slightly shorter than usual because I'm trying to keep my voice I'm trying to preserve my voice as much as possible so I can get to the full end of this forecast. But there's two real big patterns that are coming up that I'm seeing. And one is this fire and air kite that's ongoing. And also we've got a full moon that is coming in and developing over the course of the week as the moon is getting bigger during the waxing gibbous phase. Now these patterns are really strong, and they're really emphasizing the fire signs here. So Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius, and then also Aquarius and Gemini in particular. And of course, we've got the South Node in Libra right now as well. So there's a lot going on in the fire and air. And so this is really going to put you in your element. You're very used to this. I mean, it might be a very ungrounded week, but I don't think that's going to stop you, nor should it. Before I really dive into it, what I want to say is if you want more specific information about the full moon, there's a chapter earlier about it that includes the Sabian symbols and the asteroids as well involved in it. So that could be really helpful. If you want to know more about the fire and air kite, in particular about Venus's role, then check out that particular Venus section. And also if you're looking for a day by day all sign forecast, then also check out the day-to-day forecast earlier in this session, and that should be helpful. But this is all of that with a Leo kind of sort of flavor to it. This is how does the Leo work with this energy? And so I really want to start with this grand fire trine that is the base of this kite. This grand fire trine is going on all week. We've got the North Node here. It will be heading into Pisces in just a few weeks' time. So we're coming to the end of a story to do with the North Node in Aries. We've got Mars going retrograde in Leo, which is a really important house for you and sign for you, and that is creating a new story. We've also got Mercury retrograde going through this part of your chart. So I'm going to start with Mars here. Mars has been in your first house for a short while, and usually that comes up as a sense of renewed confidence, a sense of renewal in your body, that you've got more strength, you've got more determination, and pizzazz to be your usual sort of Leo energy. And yet it's going retrograde. And so I think what's going on is we're thinking, how can I take action? How can I feel more confident? How can I get stronger in my body? How can I take action to get stronger in my body? There's all these questions about the next action you need to take. And you're kind of turning it inwardly, so you might be taking inner action, like these little invisible actions that nobody else can see, but there's still this kind of questing. And in solving this, I think you have to go back to your childhood, back to your home, back to the mum, the stories of the mum. When you remember who you are at your core, I think things will become a lot more straightforward. That's, the first thing that really comes up. Mercury retrograde during this time is talking to you in terms of what do you like being passionate about? What lifts you up? What makes you want to talk and share things in terms of your passions? Maybe you are wanting to be quite creative right now, and yet Mercury retrograde is saying, hang on a second, before you can really know what you're passionate about and what's lifting you up and what's bringing you joy, again, you want to go home, interestingly, back, but this time not to your childhood home in your memories and stuff, but actually into your real home. You're going back, stepping back into the home. You're needing a bit more stability. Because once you get your stability right, it will feel very natural to be creative again, so get your stability right and things will sort themselves out. Anyway, Mercury's going to go direct again from the end of the week, so that should all sort itself out. And up here with the North Node, there's this real shift over the last 18 months about what your belief systems are, you know, like where's your spirituality, your politics, your view of the world, your view of the global world that we all appear to be signed into, and have different relationships with. So there's a lot here about what it takes to be like your identity, your relationship with the world out there, and also the creativity that comes from deeply knowing yourself and deeply understanding your relationship to the big world. So these are like a continuous sort of theme in this week ahead. And then there's Venus here, you know, in this part of your chart, which is about relationships. And yet she's in a very sort of detached sort of energy. To me, it feels like your the people in your life might be quite unattached. You might feel quite unattached to the people in your life. You might also realize that the way you're seeing the people around you is because you're unattached. You know, like I really think what goes on in the 7th is what we're projecting onto our partners. So if you're finding your partners, the people in your life, to be a little airy, not so personalized, not so focused on yourself, not so in your story, like they're drifting away a little bit, then that's, I think, also because there's a need for you to drift away a little bit, for you to reimagine. You know, maybe you find yourself actually better and more clearly right now by kind of diving into where your partners are and what's lighting up their world. I actually think by going into the partnership and out of your relationship to self for a short while, don't worry, it's not going to stay like that. You'll get a refreshment. You'll get a greater sense of who you are, you know, because it's going to give you a contrast. You know, like anytime we partner with others at a much deeper level, we learn things from a different perspective, and that different perspective, it like, and a real personal perspective, is going to shift us. And so, yeah, I think it's really important right now to enjoy what your relationships are bringing you, and enjoy that new perspective. And if you haven't got any, you know, if you're not like in a living relationship with somebody, or if you don't feel like you've got anyone close around you, just how are you relating to the rest of the world? Like if you go for a walk, what do you notice about the people around you? What do you notice about people around you, full stop? You know, there's lessons there to be observed. And now the full moon that's coming up, you know, the full moon is going to be here. Its focus, your emotions are going to be really here, in the sign of Gemini, really showing that there's stuff to do with other people, and what other people are creating. And the sun down here, the other side of, you know, the full moon configuration, the sun and the moon are always in opposition at the time of the full moon. The sun is showing that really you're wanting to create something very much about yourself, very much from what you're passionate about. And usually I would say, oh yeah, you should totally go with that. You should absolutely follow what is bringing you joy, and what is bringing you a sense of uplift. And yet the full moon is pulling you away to what other people are creating with their sense of joy and their global and connected vision. And actually, you know, there's some tension between those, but you might actually find it quite useful to step out of your vision and actually step into a more global vision, and to consider what's outside of you, again, because that's going to give you some interesting polarity. It's going to give you more breadth, so that as this full moon energy dissipates and as this kite dissipates, you'll be better off for it. You know, you'll have a much richer perspective that's not just based on your own internal creative struggle in life, but that you know that your new answers have also come through a direct inquiry from other people around you. Now, you know, something that's also worth bearing in mind is you might find there's some guilt trips playing into this week ahead. So even though I've said it's important to connect with people and to observe people, you might not want to take them seriously necessarily. Don't take it personally. You know, Neptune here could actually throw a spanner in the works, in particular around the time of the full moon. So I would say observing what's going on around you in terms of the people in your life, and the people that you see out in the world. That's probably enough. That's enough to get you the clues you need to be able to understand your own positioning. So I hope that's helpful, Leo. If you need any further help, feel free to get in touch. But yeah, hopefully I'll catch you again real soon in another forecast. So take care. Have a great week ahead, and catch up with you real soon. Bye for now. Virgo, let's have a look at your forecast for this week ahead. So this is a forecast taking you from Monday the 9th of December right the way through to Sunday the 15th of December. This is slightly shorter because my voice has been coming in and out. I'm fearing I might lose it, and I've got another 6 sites to do after this, so I don't want to push it. So it's a bit shorter than usual, but hopefully it will work really well. I'm going to be talking about this fire and air kite from your Virgoan position, and also the full moon, which is the sun's here and the moon is here, and it's in a T-square to Neptune. I'm going to be talking about that too from your Virgo position. Now, if you are looking for a day-by-day breakdown in terms of your forecast, then also listen to the day-to-day all-sign forecast earlier in this video. Additionally, if you want more information about this particular full moon, and the Sabian symbols around this full moon, and also the asteroids that are playing into this full moon, then check out the full moon forecast earlier in this particular show. And the final plug is about this fire and air kite, which has a lot to do with Venus. Again, if you want to know a lot more about it, then check out the earlier chapter. That, especially if you've got planets around the early fire and air signs, in particular early Aquarius in your birth chart, it could be quite helpful. Now, the first thing I want to really share with you, Virgo, is this is likely to take you out of your element. You're not really feeling like you're in your own normal space, your natural environment. In this week ahead, there's a lot of fire and air energy, which is bringing up inspirations, lots of ideas, lots of movement, in all sorts of different directions, and it's not as grounded as you would like it to be. So, you might be feeling a bit uncomfortable as this week goes ahead. But I always think that with these oppositions, like these two, and when we're in a different element, we're experiencing something new that and different that can make our life richer for the overall experience. Of course, as we progress, when we go into next week, this pattern, Venus will have moved off and out of this pattern altogether. So, and obviously the moon will keep moving and creating new patterns too. So this is really just about this week, so I think being out of your element for a week is okay. So the fire and air kite then, I should say, in terms of the moon, we're in a growth phase. And the moon's not going to go into your sign in this week ahead, though next week it will. But we're in a growth phase, so this is a week to take more action, be a lot more direct, and to directly involve yourself in experiences. Don't sit back so much. It's time to get quite busy. And then in terms of the fire and air kite, what's going on here? Well, I really see that it's based on this grand this grand fire trine. Mercury, your ruling planet, which it is actually part of this trine, and it's also retrograde. This is where I'm going to start. So Mercury retrograde is retrograding through this part here to do with your home and your experience of home. To me, it's an indication that it's important to check out how your home relates to the usual energies, like the energies of your community. If you're not feeling quite so grounded at home right now, how are you related to the rest of your community around you? Are you part of the busyness of it? Do you have friends nearby? To me, this retrograde is getting you to the core of what it is to be at home. So there's a lot going on there. Now, Mars retrograde, which is showing up in the 12th house, which is, where our unconscious mind is, all of our little mind programs, our self-sabotage, our insecurities, our fears, you know, it can be quite a gruesome place, but it's also a place of dreams and meditations and soft, intuitive, gentle work. So there's a lot of things that can change, even though it's all hidden. You know, it's a very, very powerful house, in fact. So Mars retrograde here is encouraging, and it will end his retrograde in the sign of Cancer. It's telling us, you know, right now, I don't think it's possible to take direct action to necessarily change your mind or your views about things. You might notice self-sabotage and think, what can I do about it? And in this retrograde time, it's very difficult to find the right action and to know exactly where to start. And so really, this retrograde is taking you back to the story of history, your family's history, and what that means to you. And I think as you're going back in time a little bit in your head and in your experience and going a lot more internal, I think you're getting your answers as to where you might start. So if you needed to unpick why you've got a particular self-sabotage or why you have a particular insecurity, and it's coming into your consciousness, this retrograde is going to help you get to the bottom of this. So that's really helpful. So there's stories about your current home. There's stories about your past and your unconscious mind, and I guess the programs that you've got playing in your mind. And then the North Node has been going through this part of your chart, the 8th, for the last 17 months. It's got just under a month left. And during this time, you've really been given a real sort of like boot camp about shame, blame, guilt, anger, resentment, where it comes from, how it relates to the people in your life, your relationships with very close birth family, the genetic inheritance that you've got from people, and the shared values that you have with the people close to you. So again, there's a lot here to do with your origins. You know, like your original story seems really important. So, you know, this is about like your the stories that you're carrying. Now, Venus right now, she's here in this 6th house area. She's encouraging you to detach from your stories. She's showing you that, you know, the work you've done so far has been helpful, but in fact, getting healthier, because, you know, she is about improvements, getting healthier in your life, managing your life better, managing your money better, managing your home better, managing your work better. You know, this part of your chart is absolutely about managing. It is like the office manager of your chart. And having Venus here is showing that there is help, but you have to step out of these old patterns, these old psychologies, to be able to receive that help. You know, they're part of why you need the help, but they're not necessarily part of the solution. And so she's saying, you know, drop the stories. You know, it's okay to move beyond them. And in fact, as you rearrange your home while she's going through this, as you rearrange your life and refine your processes, you're going to be maybe not needing these stories so much anymore anyway. You know, this is naturally moving you beyond there. So I think the real key here is to be a bit detached, to find the non-attachment to the way things should be, just because they were done like that historically, just because they were done like that in your family and those customs were passed down. That doesn't fly anymore. You know, it's not essential. So the flexibility here will be really beneficial. Last thing then is this full moon. So the sun is here again, honoring your ancestors and honoring your past and the sort of traditions that you've got in your family, in your home. And there is a desire to be more at home. And yet the moon here is really pointing at your future, what happens outside of the home, what happens outside of the traditions. You know, the moon here is showing that you can actually create more and more of a legacy for yourself by detaching from the home. You know, and it's going to be a distraction, that the home and how you're living through it and stuff. It's a distraction from your future. It's a distraction from your possibility. Now, there is also a little bit of possible misinformation or difficulty going on in terms of Neptune here in the 7th. You might find there's a bit of interference or guilt or shaming that comes from those closest to you if they're feeling that you're coming out of the collective home family agreement. But really, there is, I think, something new coming in for you. Now, like I said, this will swing back and forth anyway. As time passes, we will come out of this pattern. But for now, there's more riches, I think, for you to consider how you can live beyond your stories. And the more you do that, the freer you'll be and the quicker your life is going to change and transform. So I hope that's helpful for you, Virgo. I hope you have a great week ahead. Sending you lots of love. If I can be of any help, get in touch, but have a good one. And hopefully I'll connect again with you real soon. Bye for now. Hey there, Libra. So this is your forecast taking you from Monday the 9th to Sunday the 15th. If you're wondering why I'm laughing to myself, it's because I just started recording Virgo again and didn't move on my presentation to the next sign. And my goodness, what a numbnuts I am. That is really, I think, evidence of Mercury retrograde. In my own sign. Oh my goodness. Anyway, in this week ahead, there's a couple of big patterns that I'm going to be looking at in particular. The first one is being this fire and air kite, really with a base of this fire trine between Mercury retrograde, Mars retrograde, and the North Node. And also Venus, who is in the sign of Aquarius. She's also just come out of a relationship, we could say, a little tete-a-tete with Pluto, but she's moving on. So, this kite is taking up, I think a lot of this week can be explained through, examining this kite. Towards the end of the week, on the last day on Sunday, we've got the full moon in Gemini. So the sun is in Sagittarius, the moon's in Gemini. It's becoming a T-square as well with Neptune in the sign of Pisces. So I've got lots to say about that, as you can imagine. Now, we are in a waxing gibbous phase of the moon as well. So it's a week ahead where we need to take action. It's really important that we get moving on things and start building a momentum until Sunday the 15th. Before I dive in any further, though, I just want to reassure you that even though, this is the overview for Libra, if you want to know more about the ins and outs of the full moon in much greater detail, I've got a chapter earlier talking about the full moon with relevant asteroids that are playing into it and their meaning, and also Sabian symbols giving a lot more wisdom and understanding to the full moon. And I've got a chapter about the fire and air kite, and in particular Venus's role in this week ahead. So I'm going to start with Venus, actually, seeing as she's your ruling planet. This is an important week, I would say, for you, because of the importance of Venus in this week ahead. So, Venus, she is making an aspect to Mercury retrograde, to the North Node, and also to Mars. And she's really detached in the sign of Aquarius. She's all about relating. And often, we get the idea that Venus is relating to people, like on a one-to-one basis or in small groups. But here Venus is really kind of non-specific. She's quite unattached. She's more about, connecting to lots of people and connecting to lots of ideas. She's not very personalized in the sign of Aquarius. Also in the sign of Aquarius, Venus is very much any visions that she's got, because she's in your 5th house, which is about where you find passion and joy in your life. She's kind of global. She's not really, personalized in what brings her best. From her perspective, she is happier when she is kind of focusing on things that are global, that do reach more people, that might create more of a brotherly and sisterly connection with people. It's just not so personalized. That's her thing. She is also, in the 5th house, as she is here, she is wanting to create. She is wanting to, enjoy being slightly different, being slightly independent. And so you may well feel in this week ahead that right now, you're full of creative ideas, and they're not necessarily ideas that relate to the rest of your life. They are ideas that are very sort of different. Like Aquarius is one of those signs that thinks differently, acts differently, behaves differently, and isn't so worried about what other people are saying. So it's a really interesting perspective. I want to relate it though to this grand fire trine. So you'll notice here, or I'm noticing that Mercury, Mars, and the North Node, they're all currently impacting social areas of your chart. So the North Node has been going through the 7th house for a while, which is about your intimate relationships, like the people who are really around you, like your partner, in particular, and your real sort of close besties. The 3rd house, I think, is about your relationship to the community and your siblings and your peers and sort of friends, as they're coming in and out of your life, and how busy you are, where you are. And then I really see that the 11th house is much further afield, so it might be people you're connected to in networks, your colleagues and friends of friends through, your work and, social activities. And it can also show your pals from social media that you may never have even met, So, it's a lot more global in its reach. And so, with Mercury retrograde, it feels like there's a need to rethink your status within the local community. Like, how are you there? What does your local community represent to you? What about like your local friends, your local business, like the busyness of you? Is there something that needs to change? Do you need to like wind it in, reel it in? Do you need to expand a little bit? But to me, the retrograde is an invitation for you to consider what is working there and what's not. Now, with Mars retrograde here, it feels like, before it went retrograde, it was going direct through here. It felt like you were ready to dive into lots of things that are taking you outside of your usual world, in particular with things that might really matter in terms of big sort of visions for other people, where there's color and there's storytelling and all sorts of different things, which kind of sounds quite personalized, but it's quite a rich scene, where you might be collaborating with people in a really, really great way. And yet now he's retrograde, it feels like, to understand how you might want to collaborate with other people, you might need to go back in your history a little bit and to think about your past, think about what kind of sociability you learned from your parents and from your family, etc., etc. It's almost like you need to gain a bit more confidence, before you can move forwards. And so I do think that's going to happen. You might also find that the people in your network seem a little bit angrier than usual. And so you might also be thinking in terms of, maybe I wait a while before I step back into my community. So I do think there's these shifts going on with the people in your life. And then, the North Node going through here, and the South Node going through your own sign. To me, it feels like you've been learning a lot about where the buck starts and where the buck ends. Like how much is your partner your responsibility, and how much is your partner's problems affecting your daily life? Is it becoming a real big issue for you? Like, how much do you want to give, and are you over giving? I really think, with each of these social connections, there is a real positive and also a negative. And so Venus here, I think she's able to create something that feels global and that it reaches people without actually having to do any of the heavy lifting, without actually having to get involved. So I actually feel right now that for you, it feels so much more nourishing and supporting for you to kind of step away from the fray a little bit, step away from all the people in your life, just a little bit, just for a little while. It's only going on for a week. I'm not saying lock yourself away necessarily, but it just feels like a week to really develop things for yourself, which will have a big impact. You don't have to be doing this with other people and experiencing their drama or experiencing, like their values and how that sort of impinges on who you are. So I really see that there is this desire to kind of disconnect a little bit and to seem a bit absent from, your social engagements, and to just enjoy being you and be passionate about the things that really light you up. So I think there's something to learn in there, that your story doesn't have to be everyone else's story. And maybe, and this is most likely because you are a Libra, and in fact, I've got a daughter who's a Libra, and this really fits her actually. She's a Capricorn, but she's got Libra rising and Libra moon. And, what I notice is, everything that's going on in her life is about what everyone else is doing. And so, maybe this is what you're learning at the moment, that, it's important to just take a step back and reconnect with what's yours, so you're not like taking on everything. You're not, it's like you're doing a detox from people just for a bit. And like I said, it's not forever. It's just, this is a pattern that's going on right now. It just feels like it's time to, get some you time, which is interesting because I always think Aries is me and Libra is we, but this is time for you, like your own me time. So I like that. Now with this particular full moon, again, there's a similar message. The moon is going into Gemini, the full moon, and it's in the 9th house. It's absolutely talking about freedom, space, your opportunity to delve into any subject you want. And that's the key. It's what you want. This is about you going on your great adventure. This isn't about doing somebody else's adventure. This is about you. And it's questing and it's independent, and a lot of information could come up. You might have lots of different little things that you want to do, lots of little vistas you want to rush off into, or subjects you want to skim over before committing to anything. So yeah, this is a kind of change. This is a bit of a flip for you. And it's interesting because the sun here is in the 3rd house. So, there is such a temptation to be in and around your nearest and dearest, and, to be part of your community, and to really feel like you belong there. And yet there is something going on in you right now that feels like, no, I just want to be free. I just want to kind of drop the stories of everybody else's stories, actually. So it's not that you're dropping your stories. Actually, what I'm like suggesting to you is that you pick up your story, but you drop everyone else's stories that you've been carrying on your back, on your shoulders, and you allow everyone to drop away, and for you to get much clearer about yourself. So to me, that feels like the crux of it. And with Mercury retrograde, that ends on the 15th after the full moon, and then it goes direct again. So, I think as you start next week, you'll probably be coming back into every day feeling quite refreshed, and ready to see life from a slightly different perspective. So allow yourself this week at the very least to, drop what everyone else is fussing about. Wouldn't that be a nice experience? Just like leave them to their own business and their own concerns. This time is for you, Libra. So there you go. I hope that's helpful to you in navigating the week ahead. If I can be of any help, get in touch. I'm not taking any more bookings right now until February, because it's time for me to do some deep thinking, and I've also got quite a few things booked in already. So if you are wanting some extra assistance or anything in particular, as we're already in 2025, like if you've got plans, for the spring and stuff, then get in touch. Like I said, I'm taking bookings from February. But anyway, take care. Have a great week ahead, and hopefully speak to you all soon. Bye for now. Hey there, Scorpio. So this is your forecast taking you from Monday the 9th to Sunday the 15th of December. This is a slightly shorter session than usual because I've overstretched my voice a little bit, and I want it to last for the next few signs. I want to get to Pisces. What am I going to cover in this shorter but concise, and hopefully it's still going to pack some punch, but forecast, what am I going to do? So I'm going to look at the fire and air trine that's coming up this week. It's with us all week. It's a really strong pattern. And then it's emphasized by the full moon taking place in Gemini on the 15th, right at the end of the week, and right at the end of the week as well, after the full moon, Mercury goes direct. It's all about these fire and air signs. So you could be forgiven for feeling a little bit out of your element. You know, the fire and air energy is so strong right now. So, you know, if you were hoping to be grounded at all, good luck with that. I mean, you know, especially if you've got a really Scorpio chart, like really watery, you know, there will be absolutely, you'll be looking for an island that you can just like swim to, and then, oh God, like meditate, sit and chill and ground. But no, there's none of that this week. It is all very, very fiery and airy. So yeah, you might want to just consider, how can I enjoy the ride for this week ahead? You know, how can I consider myself to be on a voyage of discovery in this week ahead with insights, inspiration, and yeah, a whole new focus. You see, because at the end of this week, you know, Venus will move out of this position, and, you know, Mercury is also going to be moving forwards and coming out of this trine. The North Node is also moving backwards. So this is all coming undone next week. So what I'm saying is there is this new pattern for this week ahead, and then it's going to dissipate. So like, enjoy a change. It's like an interval between acts, so to speak. Now, before I do crack onto this, you know, so we've got the air trine, and we've also got the kite and the full moon. I just want to signpost that if you do want more, you know, if you want to know more about the full moon, I've put in a really full chapter earlier in this video talking about the full moon, the asteroids related to the full moon and their meaning and forecast, and also the Sabian symbols relating to the full moon. So there's a lot there for a full moon aficionado. For the fire and air sign, if you want to know more about air signs and Venus in particular, you might want to check out that particular chapter earlier in this video as well. And also, if you're looking for a day-by-day forecast, allowing you to sort of understand the flows of the planetary energy, how you might want to use that on a day-by-day basis, then check out that particular forecast as well. So there's a lot of resources there for you, but this is all of that and more with a Scorpio kind of sting to it. So I'm going to dive in, I think, here with Aquarius. Actually, no, I'm going to start with the fire trine that is supporting this kite, because one of your ruling planets, which is Mars, is at one of these corners of the fire trine. So Mars right now is in a very prominent place in your chart in terms of, you know, symbolizing your career, how you can move forwards in your career, how you can take action in your career, how you can be quite assertive and, you know, really be felt in your career, you know, really be like experienced. But, you know, Mars is going retrograde, and he's going to be retrograde until the 24th of February. So it's going to be a while. But he's not quite ready to move into this part of the chart yet. You've got the enthusiasm, but there's a few things to check out. So I really see that there's some homework, like learning more about the past, learning more about how you explored the past, enjoyed the past, expanded your knowledge in the past. You know, Cancer has a lot to do with the past. It also has a lot to do with home and our expectations. And so I think, you know, more about your foundational learnings needs to come into your offering before you're coming back into this 10th house. So there's a little bit going on there. You might not be feeling as focused in your career as usual. I think it's more about getting your energy right before you start taking these bold moves again. And you will be back being bold for sure. Also in this fire trine, you know, Mercury's retrograde in this second house, which is about how you're earning money. And so I think there's a lot of there's a lot of stuff going on. You may well have found there's been distractions. I've got Scorpio rising, and I've made so many mistakes in my work, which is obviously how I make money. So I've had to correct myself. It's taken a lot longer. So you may well have found that. And in that, you know, you'll be reviewing your processes, you know, like, where in my process are there these moments where I could make a mistake? You know, how can you foolproof this? So you're getting lots of intel about how to do things differently when it moves forwards. And of course, Mercury is going direct from Sunday the 15th. The North Node is here and it's been going through this part of your chart, really awakening aspects of your daily performance. You know, I think this part of the chart is absolutely about really about your day-to-day experience, how you manage your work, your life, your home, your health, your diet, like it's everything. And so the North Node here has really shown you where there are some discrepancies in your energy management, where you need to tighten up your health, where you need to tighten up your diet, and where you need to be a flipping grown-up. So grow up already, you know. So there's a really strong push there, you know, from the North Node. And so these guys working together, I think, are really helping you create this kind of lean, mean working machine, this like lean, mean money machine. You know, all of these aspects are very much about your physical status in the world. So there's a lot of change going on there. And it's kind of funny because all of this is your outer focus. And really, Venus here, who's in opposition to Mars, she's saying, well, maybe your focus should be here at the home. Like, boy, oh boy, your attention has been on your money, on your organization, and on your status and your career. And it's like, you're missing a trick here. Like, how can you come more into the home and be without these stories of achievement, and be out of these stories of must-dos, to-do lists, and the kind of aggressive push to move yourself forwards? How can you kind of detach from it all, and be at home? And also, how can you be quite detached at home? So, you know, maybe all of this questing is so that you can have a really nice home. And actually what you're noticing in this week ahead is that you can be really harmonious at home without any of these trimmings. You can be harmonious at home in really simple ways and in non-attached ways. And, you know, technology is an Aquarian thing. So the enjoyment of technology could help with that. But there is also this feeling of, how can you drift away at home? How can you be absent at home? How can you be unattached to the world outside of your home? So it's interesting to me that this week is taking you back into the home much more deeply. It's almost like you disappear from outer life and you are home enjoying yourself. That sounds quite good. Now there's also this opposition coming in between the sun here and then the full moon. And so, yeah, the sun is actually in these stories about value coming from what you're earning, and from your outward output. And then the full moon here is absolutely encouraging you back into, I would say, more home-based things. You know, like the idea that your security might come from learning more about your family, your genetics, your family psychology, the psychology of your childhood, things that happened in terms of shame, blame, guilt, anger, and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, the moon here, I think, is bringing up a lot more of your inner psychology, not your outer psychology. This place is also very much about other people's values and money and resources that you can also take advantage of. I mean, take advantage sounds like you're using people, but like that you can share is a better way of saying it. You know, this full moon is really showing you that you don't actually have to do it all on your own. You could actually share the discomfort of earning, or you could share in the magnificence of everybody else's contributions. So again, I think this is actually pulling you back home. Now, one of the things that could influence this sort of internal conflict is Neptune in the fifth is encouraging more creativity, but it's very, very unspecified. And so you may well get pulled off by these kind of unspecified creative missions. You might just have this sense that there's more to do, which creates a bit of a restlessness, you know, so watch out for that. Neptune is also a lightning rod for shame issues. So in the square to the full moon, there could be a lot of shaming to distract you from the real mission, which is to understand how you can be happier at home, more connected to the simpler things, and disconnect from your big stories of being out there and being important and being the main breadwinner and all of that jazz. So it's a lot of deep stuff there. And like I said, it's here really for the week ahead, and then it will fade off and a new pattern will begin, but you'll be left richer for it. So there you go, Scorpio. I hope that's helpful for you. Like I said right at the beginning, you know, at the end of this, Mercury's going to go direct. And things should get much easier. So have a great week ahead. Now, if you are already thinking that you were wanting a little bit of help or assistance and so on and so forth, I'm starting to take bookings in 2025 now, like from February onwards. So feel free to check out the links below in the details. But anyway, have a great week ahead, and hopefully catch up with you real soon. Bye for now. Hey there, Saggy. So this is the start of your forecast, taking you from Monday the 9th of December right the way through to Sunday the 15th of December. Now, I'm keeping this a bit shorter than usual, because my voice is coming in and out. So I've got to protect that somewhat, as I've got another 3 signs to do after this. But in this short forecast, what I'm going to do is really focus on the fire air kite that's going on all week, involving Mercury retrograde, Leo retrograde, and also the North Node, and also Venus here in the air sign of Aquarius. We've also got the full moon on the 15th. The moon is going to be full in the sign of Gemini, and the sun will be in Sagittarius. And then the other thing just to mention, I think, is that Mercury is going direct from the 15th after the full moon. So things should straighten up a bit. Now, you know, if you want to know more about the full moon, I do quite a full excerpt on it back earlier in this video, where I look at the full moon in particular with the aspects it's making, with the asteroids that it's connecting to, and also the Sabian symbols, so you get a much fuller forecast. I also spend quite a bit of time talking about the fire air kite with Venus. So again, that's another chapter. And if you're interested in a day-by-day forecast, please do check out the earlier chapter called Day-by-Day Forecast. So hopefully that's a good bit of signposting for you. Anyway, on to this reading. So as we start this week, going forwards, the moon is in a sort of like first quarter to waxing gibbous phase, which means the moon is becoming fuller. And then at the end of the week, just around the tail end of Gemini, we have the full moon. Now, really, I think if you're quite sensitive from the Friday the 13th, you're going to really start to feel that full moon come in, especially seeing as it's in your opposing sign. So really watch out for that, really from Friday. You'll feel it getting a little bit more overwhelming, most probably. With these waxing gibbous phases, I always think the best thing to do is to take action, feel like we're moving forwards, like there are specific practical things that we can do to move our life along. Last week, we were in a gentler growth phase, where it's important just to sow the seeds and watch to see what else was helping us. Now it's time, with all of that knowledge, to take some action. So the first thing that I really want to talk about then is this fire air kite, seeing as we've got Mercury retrograde in our sign. I say that because I am a Sagittarius. And we've got this sort of fire trine that is really supporting this kite. All 3 of these are really feeding into this Venus in Aquarius. Also, all 3 of these are going backwards. The North Node from our perspective is always going back a degree, roughly every month. It's always moving backwards. At the moment, Mercury is retrograde. Also, Leo is retrograde. So these 3 in the trine are all kind of shifting ever so slowly backwards. But Venus is moving forward. So she's like the active component of this, I really think. And, as she's moving away towards the end of this week, this pattern will start to break down. And in fact, in the following week, the trine will also break down as well. So this is an interesting scenario that's coming up, but one that is going to fade out. So my suggestions and there are going to be some big suggestions. Don't think it's a permanent suggestion. I think, to me, I see this week as a bit of a detour. We're learning something really new about ourselves in this week ahead that's going to help us, and it's going to give us a much richer picture. Oh, they rhyme nicely, don't they? So Mercury Retro, I'm going to start there. He's come into this part of our chart, which is absolutely about our identity, our branding. What is it that's unique about us? What's going on in our body? And like how you want to be seen in the world, and how you see yourself. I think actually this is very much about our identity. And so I think we were sort of getting excited, feeling a lot clearer about a lot of things, and yet there's this almost like there's some nagging doubts. And as Mercury's going retrograde, we're rethinking some of our earlier decisions, almost like there's a bit of a false start. I do think all the retrogrades give us an opportunity to reconsider things from a different perspective. And this is in a very sort of personal part of your chart. So I do think you are, I'm going to talk in you, but you are reconsidering your position about something about you, your identity, how you look. So this is very personal. But what's going on right now, and this will come to an end, next Sunday, and then it will start to move forwards again. You are going to get clearer. So whatever is going on this week is giving you some really useful, essential information that is going to help you when you start to move forwards. Mars, then, he's in the 9th. He's been there for a short while. I know, that, when Mars is going through the 9th, we feel quite enthusiastic, like we're on a big adventure. It might be traveling, it might be knowledge, it might be broadcasting, writing, creating, sharing, teaching. It's such outward and expansive place, this part of the chart. And so, I really do think you were quite motivated and feeling really like on the go, in particular to like learn as much as you could, almost like it just felt like, woohoo, I've got the resources, and if I don't, I'm going to find them. I'm really like curious and questing for more. It's like a real appetite in this part of the chart, and yet all of a sudden he's gone retrograde, and it feels like our appetite has disappeared. It feels like where's my energy gone? I had some big plans. I really wanted to expand quite a bit, and now I'm kind of stuck here and not quite sure what's going on. So what I want to say is, like, take heart, don't worry. All the things that you want to do, you can probably still do at a later date, but right now something wasn't quite fitting, where Leo is heading, and he is going to go into the sign of Cancer, and he will stop going retrograde at the end of February, I think the 24th, and then he will start moving forwards again. So it's quite a long reflection point. He only goes retrograde every 2 years or so. So as he's reflecting, it's taking you back into past pain, but the psychology of it is taking you back to past situations, past ideas about shared resources, how you work when you share your resources with other people. It might be that you were going great guns, like galloping off into your future and getting excited, but then thinking, hang on a second, my resources aren't going to quite work like this, like I'm having to share these things, and that's causing different problems and this, that, and the other. But, this part of the chart is also about moving ahead into another stage of life. And so it might be that you haven't quite completed on something. You need to complete something before you can move forwards. And I really think that's at the base of this. So, we've got this identity, then we've got this sense of freedom and knowledge and expansion that we're also rewinding on. And then, the North Node been going through the 5th house. This has been giving us a bit of a workout, or giving you a workout, in terms of your creative endeavors and what brings you to life, what lights you up. I mean, this part of the chart has to do with what you're birthing, what you're getting sexy and sensuous about, intimacy, all the great things about life that we could be enjoying and loving and excelling at. And the North Node here is really bringing up the sharp questions of, are you doing the right thing? How are you spending all your time? Are you actually enjoying yourself enough? Because if you're not, then like, what is the point? And so there's a lot here, your identity, your enjoyment, and your adventure and your freedom. There's all these really big questions, and it might seem like quite a self-indulgent time, with all this, trying to work things out. And Venus here is, she's connected to everything, but her movement right now through this part of your chart is really encouraging you to take a look at community. And in particular, in quite an impassionate way, so not a very involved way, in quite an unattached way. So like, what are you contributing to the environment? Like when I say environment, I mean like your local environment, your the environment that you live in, you walk in, you breathe in, you shop in, that you socialize in. What are you bringing to your locality? What are you bringing in terms of your friendships, and what's your role there? Venus is wanting to relate. She's a relator. She's a social lubricant. She's really helpful. And here in the third house, she's really wanting you to get out of this big mind phase where you're really thinking about, where am I, your positioning, your freedom, your need to choose and stuff. And she's actually encouraging you to come back to this place where you can co-create with the people around you and realize that actually some of your answers are within your community. So you might look around your community and see what's needed. You might chat to people around. You might meet with people that, you don't always take the time to do that with. And, in those conversations, there's going to be some golden eggs. There's going to be some beautiful things that crop up and remind you who you are. So I think Venus is helpful, but to do that, you have to kind of come out of your self-inquiry, and come into some actual inquiry with real people, real life people. Now, it's interesting that Pluto was in a conjunction with Venus just last week, and she's moving away. But, Pluto here is also creating transformation in the way we do our community and in how relatable we are, and how important we are, and like whether we have power in the community, and how we might want to do more. So I think there's a really big community push for you. Now, obviously, this is going to pass. Obviously, Pluto is going to be there for a while, but Venus is going to pass out of this. And then, a lot of this deep thought is going to change and evolve. The North Node will come in here. Mercury is going to go retrograde, go forwards. So, you are going to come back into your shape. But what I would say is, in this week ahead, suspend your need to know. Like drop your deep inquiry as you go about your life. Those answers are going to come forward. You don't have to make a special deal out of it. The most important thing is to just be kind of willing in your local community and just see what arises. There will be some beautiful gold that comes out of that. Now, the full moon is obviously quite personal. It seems very personal. It's happening in the 7th house. So, it's bringing up issues to do with partners, and loved ones. And I also think projections, especially with the full moon, because, the sun and the moon opposite, when I think of light and dark, the yin and the yang, I'm always thinking about shadow work, mirror work and stuff like that. So, this is the mirror between you, your personality, and the personalities of the people that you're with, and most likely the projections you're putting onto them. So, the sun here in the first is really kind of encouraging you to spend this time really thinking about yourself and your quest for freedom and what you're trying to achieve in life. And yet the moon is here. It may seem like your partners, the people around you, are absolutely emotional, possibly hysterical even, that they seem a lot less like themselves. They also seem to be a little bit distracted and fragmented, and maybe really trying to pull you back into the story you're trying to move away from. You might be trying to take a more cosmic look at things, and it feels like you're being pulled back into their story, your shared story, and it's quite a distraction. Now, I want to add in Neptune here in the 4th house. in particular, if you're living together. Neptune here is quite nebulous. It can really show where there's some guilt, there's some misinformation or miscommunication between you two, and guilt may play a part in this. So anything that is coming up between you and your partners, really try to understand what's behind the veil, what's the engine behind that, where has that come from. So really dig deep if you've got the chance to. And if it's easy to do, because sometimes these full moons can get completely out of hand. So this is actually quite a tricky one, more trickier because it's across the 1st, the 7th, and the 4th house. So this is big. But my overall sort of suggestion in this week ahead is a lot of your learning is actually coming from the other people in your life. It's not about what you're holding on to and your quest to understand things at a deeper level. So if you are really struggling to, find the answers of what you're here to do, the best thing you can do, in my opinion, is to kind of detach from your wanderings and connect. Connect with people around you. They are going to reflect back to you what you need to see and what you need to hear. I hope that helps you. I hope that helps you feel a bit clearer. I mean, Jupiter is also retrograde in your 7th house as well. So again, if it feels like people are a bit different around you and, they're maybe expanding in a different way, I think that's also, they're showing you what you need to do. They're showing you what you're denying in yourself. So you might be ready to expand in a completely different way, and that might come from them. So I hope that's helpful to you, Saggy. I am taking bookings now from February. All the details are below in the description box, but have a great week ahead, and hopefully I'll catch up with you real soon. So that's it. Bye for now. Hey there, Capricorn. So this is a forecast for the week ahead, starting Monday the 9th, taking you all the way to Sunday the 15th of December. Now, this is an interesting week, not one of the busiest, but I think it's got some very clear messages for us about stories we're telling ourselves, the ones that we need to detach from or would benefit from detaching from. I really think that this week ahead is taking us on a bit of a sidestep of a journey. Now, the moon is growing in this week ahead. Obviously it's not, but it appears to be getting brighter and brighter as the week goes on. It's coming to the full moon on the 15th. In the sign of Gemini. So in this forecast, what I'm going to talk about is this fire and air kite, and how that's going to affect your particular Capricorn take on it, and also the full moon from your position as being a Capricorn, and also mention Mercury going direct finally. Now, this is a slightly shorter version because my voice has been wavering a little bit today, and I need to, make sure I get to Pisces. Earlier on in this video, I was thinking I wasn't even going to get as far as Capricorn. So, I'm shortening it quite considerably. But, if you want a much deeper look at the full moon, there is a chapter earlier in this video that talks about the full moon with the asteroids that are affecting it, with the planetary lineup that is leading into the full moon energy, and also the Sabian symbols that you might find their interpretations quite helpful. If you want to know more about the fire and air kite, then there is a separate chapter, especially for Venus and the fire and air kite. And if you are looking for more of a day-by-day forecast, then also check out the earlier chapter, unsurprisingly called Day-to-Day Forecast. So there you go. But this forecast is really to describe, what I've already spoken about, but from the Capricorn perspective, from your perspective, so that what themes are coming up and what might need to shift. Now, this is a very, very shifting week, even though it doesn't feel like there's much going on. And one of the reasons for that is there's nothing for you to hold on to. You're a fire sign, and this is all fire and air. Sorry, you're an earth sign, and this is all fire and air. We've got Chiron, the North Node, Mars, Mercury, the Sun, all in fire signs. We've got this Venus and Pluto in and Jupiter in Gemini. We've also got the South Node in Libra. So, the fire and air are really, really strong. And you've only got one Earth, which is Uranus and Taurus. So it's ungrounded, and it's going to take you on a bit of an expressive time. It's not going to be carefully planned or anything like that. It's going to be in the moment, on the feelings of the moment. It's not really one you can plan. So what I want to do now is to talk about the fire air kite, in particular the fire trine. These are all going on all week, but towards the end of the week, it starts to dissemble. In particular, Venus is coming out of the picture first, just leaving this fire trine for next week to finally crumble. But the fire trine is, I think, interesting. So Mercury retrograde, first of all, going through this part of your chart is opening you up to new thoughts and perspectives about yourself, about your programming, what's working, what's not. If you can see the things that are going on in your life, and everywhere there's a problem, you might ask yourself, well, what's contributing to that right now? Which of my programs are feeding into this? Which of my insecurities are feeding into this, or my fears? What's also going well, you might also choose to ask yourself about, like, which of my characteristics or core values or core behaviors is leading into this really satisfactory series of results. It's not good, it's not bad. It's just, this is a time to review your internal programs. So whatever you are judging as good or bad or whatever, ask yourself, what's feeding into that? What's feeding into that? Because your unconscious mind is going to be speaking really beautifully to you right now. Even though Mercury's retrograde, I think that's actually quite helpful in this position. So this is a week where you can learn a lot about yourself. Now, Mars going retrograde in Leo, so he came into Leo, was delving into this part of your chart is a part of rites of passage, secrets, also, what you're sharing with people and what you're working on with the people that you love. But it also includes things like guilt, shame, blame, and anger, like the expectations that you have for other people and how they fail by those, and the expectations that people have for you, that you probably fail by their expectations. So all of that kind of secretive, gunky, kind of middle ground, so Mars is sort of kind of piled right in, ready to take action on your inner psychology, to do some real turnaround work. And then just as he's got in, it feels like he's got cold feet and he's coming back out. He's kind of tentatively inching out back into the 7th house of Cancer. Now, what I really see going on here is maybe there was a lot of stuff that was coming up. And actually, it's more important for you to focus on the strengths of your relationships, and in particular, the strength of the relationships that you've had from the past. Cancer has a real strong feeling of history. And so I really think, you can, if you can connect into your connection with people and remember your connection with people, then, and the specialness of that connection, it gets a bit easier when you then think, okay, it feels like this is a bit gaslighty, or it feels a bit like this. Doesn't feel so good. I want to approach it from a perspective of not that you're wrong, but I value you and I want to know why this is existing between us. Now, this is going on for a while. Mars is coming back here. He's not going to move forwards again until February the 24th. So again, there's something psychological going on where you're getting to know the underpinnings of your life, like how it's working. The North Node has been going through this part of your chart down here, about your home, your security, your beliefs and behaviors about home and security, and also some stuff about the past, like your parents and how they were and how you are relating to them. So to me, there's a lot of stuff to do with your inner baggage, like the luggage that you've taken with you, and then you think, oh, there's my luggage, and then you realize it's baggage. It's all of that stuff. You're doing quite a lot of work on it. But Venus here, she's connected to it all, but she's having none of it. She is really wanting to break free of it, if anything. She's saying, oh, all that shared stuff, all those expectations, I'm going to shrug those off, actually. That doesn't feel good. Venus here is helping you feel good about you as an individual. She's there helping you feel good, to have self-esteem, to feel confident, to recognize your true value. And she's actually saying, you know what, your true value's got nothing to do with this. Sure, this stuff has all brought you to where you are right now, but your true value is still building. And, you know, whilst she is here in this part of the chart, she's going to teach you to find your wealth, you know, find your real strengths. And so she's going to be working on that. So if anything, you need to drop these stories that you've been working on, just let them go for a bit and just trust Venus that, you know, every time there's some flow, think, okay, there's something that I'm good at here. There's something that I'm valuable with here. Remember, she's just been in a conjunction with Pluto just last week, and Pluto is here for a long time in your chart. You know, he is coming here to give you a real good workout for 20 years, you know, in terms of your attitudes to money. And of course, all of that, you know, relates back to how successful or brilliant or right or good or treasured you feel in yourself. If you can love yourself and see the value of you to a much higher degree, you're much more likely to increase your wealth. So there's something really deep going on here. So yeah, whatever is going on here, these are part of your old story still playing out. Now, I'm not saying they're going to disappear or they're not worth it or anything. However, just notice what is working for you, where things are in flow, this is how you recognize Venus. It's flowing. So yeah, consider that. Now, the other thing, the full moon. So the sun is here, and this isn't a part of your blind spot. You know, it's really, really close to the edge of the 12th house. You know, so I think the sun, you know, it's looking for freedom from the confines of your mind. You know, the sun in Sagittarius and the asteroids it's connecting to. Like, check out that full moon chapter. You know, the asteroids it's connecting to, and the Sabian symbols, they're all looking for you to find freedom from where you've caught yourself up in little traps, self-sabotage, you know, anywhere where you're not fully allowing yourself to be. And then Venus here is really wanting to be in this kind of physical, the moon here is wanting to be in this very physical part of your chart to do with organizing your life correctly and to restructure it and this, that, and the other. And so to me, again, there's this sort of internal fight between what's going on in your inner psychology and then the real actual purpose of living, you know, getting that balance right. So, you know, and this is just my opinion, if I was in your shoes right now, Capricorn, I would focus more on what is going well and how you can build your life better, like build it back in a more flowing way, in a way that's going to work for you. You know, yes, there's some inner psychology, and yes, in normal readings, I would say you need to get that right, you know, because if you don't get that right, it's going to be hard to build up from it. But, you know, right now, Venus is really showing you that your true flow comes from recognizing these stories, but really moving beyond them. So allow this full moon to move you beyond your mind and into your reality. That's my biggest piece of advice. Last thing, you know, your ruling planet is also in the 3rd house. Again, that's mobilizing you back into reality. You know, it's really asking you to stay present, purposeful, and of like being practical in your community, you know, being respectful in your community. And by community, you know, I'm not talking about like your Facebook community or anything like that, but like the people you're meeting on a daily basis, you know, like the people that you reach through your work, the people in your neighborhood, the people nearby. It's like local action. Right now, I think the more real you are, the more these stories of the past, which are important, that, you know, but they're just not kind of relevant to you in this week ahead, you know. So stick in the here and now, allow yourself to feel the value, and yeah, I think the week will go really, really smoothly from there on in. So I hope that's helpful, Capricorn. Sorry that I'm trying to sort of break it down a little bit and shorten it, but yeah, I think this is an interesting week ahead, and one that you can get some real sort of practical applications going in. So There you go. Have a great one, and hopefully I'll catch you next time. Bye for now. Aquarius. So this is your forecast for the week ahead, starting Monday, the 9th of December, taking you all the way through to Sunday, the 15th of December. This is a slightly shorter reading than usual because my voice, has been a little bit foggy today, a little bit difficult to get my voice very clear. So I'm kind of conserving my energy a little bit. Now, in this particular forecast, I am considering the fire and air sign Kite, which is really sort of, I think, not giving you anything to hold on to at all this week ahead. And you'll be in your element, obviously, because there's a lot going on with the air energy, and fire is just fanning it up even more, or it is warming up your air. It just feels like quite an inspiring and exciting week ahead. There's also a full moon, again with fire and air, so that's an interesting scenario. There's a lot going on. Mercury is also going to go direct in the fire sign of Sagittarius right at the end of the week. So I'm going to be talking about these three things, but just as a little aside, if you're looking for a day-by-day forecast, check out the earlier chapter in this video called Day-to-Day Forecast. I'll be talking about how you might choose to spend each day according to, the intricacies of where the moon is, etc. If you do want a lot more information about the full moon, then check out the earlier full moon chapter where I talk about the full moon and its useful asteroids, and also not the moon's asteroids, it hasn't got asteroids, but the asteroids are working with the moon, and also the Sabian symbols. And then if you want to know more about the fire and air Kite and also Venus's role, then please also check that out too. Right, let's dive in. So this week ahead is in a waxing gibbous moon phase, leading up to the full moon. What this means is the moon is getting bigger. It's not actually, but it's appearing bigger. And it appears to be happening faster and faster as we get closer and closer to the full moon. And in my mind, it is used best. This energy is all about growing things quickly, taking action, like recognizing where things are great and just adding to it. So it's picking up speed. That's the thing that I really take from this. And it's interesting because this fire air Kite, which is obviously, all over the place, air moves, it's fluid. Fire is very, vibrant and energetic. It's really strong. So there's a lot of movement, and yet this fire trine that's part of the Kite, all the bits involved appear to be moving backwards. So one of them is the North Node, which always, well, not always, but its average direction is always moving backwards. We've also got Mercury going retrograde, so it appears to be moving backwards. And Mars is part of a retrograde pattern. He's going to be moving backwards now until the 24th of February, when he starts to go direct again. So it feels like the motivations, the motivations and energy to do with everything that is part of your social contract, like how you are with your loved ones, your friends and neighbors, and then your outer connections with the world. Everything is being revised and reconsidered. So for instance, Mercury retrograde, let's start there. He's in your 11th house, which usually makes you so much more chatty, and really wanting to communicate more with people within your networks, your working colleagues and stuff, your friends of friends. To me, it's a time when you naturally spread out so much further and are really busy and enjoying the flow. It really sort of ties in with a global vision. It just feels like there's something happening. And with the retrograde, there's a few different things that might be happening. You might be finding there's disjointed communication with these people, or that the flow isn't as enjoyable. Maybe you're finding the people around you to be saying one thing but meaning another, or they appear to have a completely different view to the one that you have. And so there is an adjustment. To me, it's like Mercury is going backwards, so you can reflect on the people you're connected with and whether you're still all in alignment with each other. here with Mars in the 7th. Now, often, when Mars is in this part of the chart, we notice that the people around us, in particular our loved ones, tend to get a bit more defensive. They might attack a little bit more. They might be, they might have very good boundaries and a lot of triggering. You might find that they're a little bit angrier than usual, a little bit stronger than usual. And, I always think that what we're seeing in the people around us in this kind of place of projections is also what we need to be doing. Maybe we're stronger than ever. Maybe we're the ones that are slightly cross and slightly impatient, but we're kind of projecting it onto them. So I always think that when Mars is here, we need to look at our own temper and our own patience and review that. But, so it's like we want to take actions with our loved ones. We want to do stuff. We want to be active with them. And yet it just feels like that energy's dropped. And what I think is necessary between you and your partners is that you kind of take the sort of usually outward action where you might do physical things together. You might be more sensuous and sexual together, but you might actually turn it more inward and think about what sort of personal actions can you do together? How can you support each other and nurture each other? So you're taking a different kind of action with them. So I see this as very much a point of self-care. Rather than, hopping into bed and, having a right good session together, you might actually just be holding each other's feet and looking into each other's eyes and really connecting in a different way. And you might feel your energy drop, and that's fine. You might feel your sex drive drops a little bit, and don't worry, the more you connect again inwardly, the more you will connect outwardly. It's going to work out nicely. And then you've also got the North Node, which has been going through this part of your chart for a while, bringing up questions about where you belong and whether you're connected to the right people within your community and kind of what's my position, what should I do, which group should I get involved in. It's a lot of sort of here, there and everywhere. It's a very, very busy part of your chart. And so, to me, there's a lot going on with other people. And that seems to be where you're considering everything from. But Venus here, she's in your first house. And actually, this is the time for you to consider yourself. This is the time to appreciate yourself. This is a time when it's like, where's your physical beauty? How can you be admired more? How can you enjoy being in your body more? Like really, truly. Pluto has kind of set the scene here. Pluto's come in here to put you into your own sense of power and to challenge your ideas on power and how you can feel stronger in yourself. Now, Venus is here with a bit of Pluto power behind it. And I really think there's something of kind of like pussy power, or, sorry if you're a man listening. But to me, this is like you're coming into a real sort of like a time of attraction and strength through being an attractive person. There's something new developing within you, and actually that's got nothing to do with these people. I mean, they've kind of set you up to come into your power, or you've set this up, like you are the one that's done all these connections and maintain these connections. They're still part of your life, but right now it feels for you to step into your the new sort of ego you're creating for yourself, the new kind of persona you're creating for yourself. You might need to just disconnect from them for a while, just enjoy being yourself, enjoy being in your body, enjoy being sensuous, like massage yourself, give yourself a makeover. Like, I think this is a time to really indulge in you. And the funny thing is, what I think is going to happen is, as you indulge in yourself, I really think that everyone else is just going to kind of fall for you more. I don't think people are going to look at you and go, oh God, you're so vain, or like, why are you doing that again? I actually think as you invest in you more, something magical is going to happen. It's like other people are going to want to invest in you more. So it's interesting, really interesting, fascinating, in fact. Now, this full moon, again, the sun is positioned here, really pulling you out into the extremes of your sociability, like to see how far you can reach and how much you can connect with people, and the idea of shared visions and stuff like that. So you can be co-creating with people. It feels like there's lots of things happening. Yes. And whilst that's happening, the moon is pulling you here, which is, into the place of your joy. Again, there's some message of sensuality and intimacy as well. The fifth house, it's like, where do you love? Where are you birthing things? Where are you lifted up? It's a very personal part of your chart, but really about the joy of being you. And so the moon is pulling you here. As much as life is pulling you out here, the moon's pulling you back. The moon is really wanting you to just take it easy for a while. So as this week goes on, Aquarius, here's my big advice for you is take time for you to be sensuous with yourself. Now, I'm not, that's probably conjuring up so many different sort of images, but, enjoy applying moisturizer, enjoy looking after your hands, enjoy brushing your hair or whatever it is, dress beautifully, go and invest in yourself. Take the time for you, all this stuff that you've been doing to understand each other and understanding how you fit in. Once you've enjoyed yourself here and here, you'll know about the people you want to hang out with, and you'll see some of the people you are connected with and think, yeah, I've moved on from there. And I think what is happening is the inner value that you know yourself to have is coming out. You're able to express yourself a bit more. So this is a time that might seem a bit self-involved, and yet this is just over the course of a week. So, as all these these patterns dissolve, you'll be pulled into a different way of being, but you'll be so much richer and more rewarded for having given yourself this time. So last couple of things then, your two ruling planets, according to which you believe in, modern or traditional, Saturn's in the second house. He's working on your self-worth right now. He does want you to be a bit more balanced about that. Uranus is in the fourth. He's also challenging you to do things a bit differently, that you don't have to, just fit into what you think everyone else wants. So there you go. So have a great week. Really, truly invest in yourself. Take some time, and hopefully I'll catch you next week. But lots of love. Bye for now. Oh, hiya, Pisces. How are you this week? I'm so glad I got here. Earlier when I was recording, I kept losing my voice, in particular around when I was doing Taurus. I had to stop so many times. So I wasn't even sure if I was going to get this far. And I've shortened all of the signs so that I could reach you as well, with my voice still intact, taking lots of breaks along the way. So this is your week ahead. It's taking us on a forecast from the 9th to the 10th, the 9th to the 15th of, that would be short, wouldn't it? The 9th to the 15th of December. And I'm just going to cover a couple of things in this really. The first one is this fire and air kite, which is an energy that's really holding true throughout the whole week. And it's bringing up, it's going to be interesting for you because, you're a water sign and you're the most fluid of all the water signs. So you don't really have anything to hold on to. You're always in a kind of state of flux. And now, all the energy predominantly is in fire and air. So it's like you're lost out in space, Pisces. But, I'm saying that with a massive grin. Please don't think I find it great that you're lost, because I don't think you're lost. I think what's actually going on is it's like this, the word that comes to mind is an orgy, but not for those reasons, but it's like an orgy of sensations, there's this smorgasbord of opportunities for you in this week ahead. There's no fixedness. This is a time not to be fixed at all. This is a time for you to really cut loose and enjoy yourself. So the fire and air kite, that's one of the things I'm going to be speaking about. The full moon then is also happening right at the end of the week on the 15th. And it's going to be, the sun and the moon are going to be square your Neptune in your first house. So there's that I'm going to be talking about. So if you want to know more about the full moon, I recommend you go back to an earlier chapter about the full moon specifically that is telling you or sharing with you information about the asteroids that are working with the full moon and what they might mean to flavor the full moon. There's also the Sabian symbols of the sun and the moon that can also give you an interpretation. So that is really useful if you love the full moon forecasts. The fire and air kite, I've done a separate chapter earlier in this video about them. So check that out. It focuses a lot on Venus and Mars. So yeah, there's that there. If you're wanting a day-by-day forecast, then also check earlier in this video. There's a day-by-day forecast giving you the sort of suggestions, the serving suggestions on how you manage your energy. So let's dig in. So this is the air kite, the fire air kite, the full moon, Mercury going direct from a Pisces perspective. Now, I'm going to say we a few times because I do have my moon in Pisces. I feel very Piscean. Actually, I've got a lot of stuff in Pisces, but I'm really talking about you. This is your experience. So I want to start, where should I start? I'm going to start here with Sagittarius, and this fire trine, and then later talk about the Venus component that's turning it into a kite. So we've got three things in the fire signs that all appear to be going backwards right now. So the North Node is always moving closer and closer in this direction, going backwards. And he's been in your second house, or it's a point. The North Node has been going through your second house for the last 17 and a half months. It's changing next month within about 3 weeks' time. A month's time, almost to the day. Now, the North Node has been teaching you more about your attitudes to money and receivership, about how to go beyond the past pain of worthiness and all of that entails. Mercury retrograde up here to do with your career and your output and how you're appearing in the world. This is really showing that you're going through a bit of a change. You're feeling really quite different about your career or your output, your status, the things that you've been questing for and really hoping to bring about. It now feels like there's some review points coming up about it, that maybe the things you were sure about, you're now not so sure about, and you're sort of testing out some ideas in your head. And I think that reflection time is really useful. And again, it does fit in with this message here about your inner value and how much you trust yourself. So there's a lot going on there. And then, Mars going through this part of your chart about living your life right, making it fit for purpose. This part of the chart where Mars is ruling, your routines, your habits, your daily, work, home, play, diet, all of that, including your health. Your health really comes into this, because if your balance is out of whack, your health is going to suffer. So, it's interesting. Mars is here promising for you to get stronger in yourself. And then he's going retrograde. He went retrograde a couple of days ago. So you might be feeling a bit lost there and thinking, I was quite sure I was going to crack on and get a lot done this month. And then you're starting to question yourself. Don't worry about that. That's what I want you to know. Don't worry about that. He's going backwards to this part here, which is connecting you back into what you love, what you're passionate about, what you're birthing. Because actually, when you are looking at your life through the lens of what you like doing, then you'll know how to organize it, So he's asking you to dig in deeper. So from my perspective, it looks like there's a lot of concern about how you're appearing in your career, your money, and your sort of physical reality. It's very much about the outward, your outward doings. And also I see that as connecting you to the physical world of money and money management and managing your life. It's not very romantic necessarily and not very soulful necessarily, but it's absolutely about the material realities. And so there's a lot of concentration on that. And yet Venus is connected to them all. And, she's got some insight for you, basically. She is in the sign of Aquarius, which is a sign very much about non-attachment and universality. She's asking you to check out of those stories, like drop those stories. Just for this week, while this kite is going on, can you step out of your concern about your business world? Can you step out of your earnings for a bit? Like step out of your stories about your earnings, your stories about your value. And can you step out of the stories about your housework and your health and your midriff and all sorts of different things going on there? She's asking you to, to go inside and to enjoy the simplicity of being in your own meditative space. She's not asking you to be out there. She's asking you to be quite internal, which is kind of fascinating, isn't it? Because right now it just seems there's so many outer things to focus on, but really the true focus for this week ahead is to be internal. Now, Pluto's already sown the seeds there. She was in a conjunction with Pluto last week. She still is, but that's fading. Pluto's showing her that there's some real strength in the inner mind. And that's one of the things you're learning is, how you can gently reprogram your mind, how you can gently let go of, the things you're persistently worrying about. So she is here to bring you some peace in your inner world. And in doing so, let these stories kind of drop away. They'll still be there. They are still important, but they're not really the thing that's moving you. The thing that's moving you is your ability to disconnect and go inside. Now, as the week progresses, the full moon comes in. And so the sun is here in the sign of Sagittarius, and then the moon is here right at the bottom in the sign of Gemini. Very, very close to one of your rulers, Jupiter. So there's a bit of a Jupiter theme going on there as well. And again, we've got the story of home versus away. And you could say the outer world and the inner world. So the sun is really pushing you out to celebrate all your successes and to be really excited by life. The sun at the top of the chart is usually quite a great time to, recognize how far you've come and be like kind of happy about it. Hopefully really happy about it. What's the point otherwise? But actually at the time of the full moon, you're really being reminded of your inner world, your home, your physical home, but your body as a home, and also the space. I'm thinking the space inside your mind, but like the space in between every single cell. And then if you were to blow up every single cell, how much of it has any matter in and how much of it is just empty space? There is a spaciousness about all of us, about this whole reality that we live in. And actually the real challenge here is to come out of this very real manifested world and to step inside here for a deconstructed, spacious, quiet world to see what comes up. So, really there's nothing to do this week at all. And it's so funny that when I started this reading, I said, it's like you're lost out in space, and there's nothing to grasp onto. Well, it's so funny that I've come full circle and ended up back here. I promise you that wasn't intended. It's just how everything has flown. The last thing with this full moon is it's in a T-square with Neptune. I think there are lots of lies and there's lots of lies that we tell ourselves that we might be really sure about. There's lots of things we're telling ourselves all the time, and Neptune showing up here can show you some of the deceptions that you're playing on yourself, but also some of the sort of real spiritual truths you're working on. I mean, here's the thing with Neptune. There's so much duality, especially in its own sign of Pisces. You never really know what you're getting. But I really think at the time of this full moon, you might also be getting some sort of internal psychic intuitive phenomenon going on. And one of the things to watch out for is it telling you the truth? How do you know it's telling you the truth? So I do think you could get a little bit lost in that. But this is a very, very intuitive and deep and fast acting full moon. It's going to bring up a lot. So my advice then, Pisces, is to kind of sit back a little bit, drop this big drama about work and time and managing resources and things, and come back into yourself and recognize there's more space than you realize. Come back into the home, come out of the drama. Next week you can pick it back up again if you choose to, and I'm sure the astrological patterns will bring some more things in. But for now, there is an adventure of inner richness, and that is what I recommend you focus on. So I hope that's helpful to you. Have a fantastic week ahead, and hopefully I'll catch up with you real soon. Bye for now. So there you go. Feeling a little bit dizzy and lightheaded after that. I don't know if I've ever shared that, but when I come to the end of all of my forecasts, I think it's because I'm rapidly communicating. That obviously I'm breathing quite a lot, and there's so much flow. I feel really quite invigorated and also really exhausted, as if I've been in an argument or a really deep discussion for hours, and I guess I have. It's also been a challenge as well, because I felt my voice failing a few times and I really wanted to communicate, so it's been a challenge for me. One of the things that really came up to me is that this week ahead is really like stepping out of your reality just for a week, stepping out of your usual patterns, and just being in a new state. I really think it's going to lead to a new sense of richness for you, a new opportunity. You can pick it all up as you go forwards again. I also recognize we are telling ourselves stories all the time, like really, truly. And I think the disconnection from those stories is going to be very helpful. Something else that has occurred to me in doing this is the joy of unpacking things can get very, very intense. So with the Mercury retrograde, the Mars retrograde working with the North Node, it just feels like too much is being unpicked, and we're focusing too much on the details. And like as we disconnect from those details, it gets easier, it gets better, it gets more manageable. And the other thing is just how ungrounded this energy is in this week ahead. I just think, when I think about this energy and apply it, and I don't think I've actually once applied this energy to what might be going on in the world right now, but every time I check my news feeds and stuff, there's some really big stuff going down, and I'm just thinking, crikey, that's quite a big shift. There's a lot of stuff coming at us in rapid succession, and so with this fire and air energy that's so changeable and so ungrounded, I think we could choose to be really rooted and fixed and say, this is what I know to be true, so that you don't get too knocked around. Or you could just like untether yourself from those stories and kind of be a bit like Neo, is it, in the Matrix, and kind of sidestep it all, just be fluid. And I think that is fluidity and resting and not taking ourselves too seriously, I think, is the way forward in this week ahead. So God bless us all. Who knows where we're going to be next week? Just want to show off some of my, I was having a conversation with somebody that watches the show. These are Moldavite. I've got 22 of these Moldavites. This is one of my favorite. I love this so much. I've had it for years. But I feel like I can really tune in when I'm wearing my Moldavite. I had to stop wearing jewelry for a while when I was breastfeeding children, because it would, I would scratch their faces with it. It's, unmeaning. I wouldn't mean to, obviously. Got some malachite on today as well, which I like. And this, I find this such a grounding and protecting thing. I wear it if ever I go somewhere new and I feel slightly wary. I love this. It's tourmalinated quartz. It's a bit like rutilated quartz, but with tourmaline in. And I often wear it with this line sort of facing forwards. I feel like it protects me from everyone. Gives me a bit of space, but of course that's just in my head. It's just my story. It's another story to drop, isn't it? So anyway, and I'm also wearing some rutilated, I think it's rutilated, I can't remember what it is, but hang on. It's beautiful. I can't remember what it is. I will put it. It's like hair. It's just absolutely beautiful. So yeah, lots of different energies going on this week. So have a fabulous week ahead. I hope everything goes really, really well for you, and hopefully I can catch up with you all soon. Anyway, lots of love. Bye.